la violencia política es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo del público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Hoy, esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
more than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to all member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from Ministries of Labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, The Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools and services. In partnership with leading private sector institutions, we offered micro, small, and medium enterprises access to online tools and training, increasing their visibility and participation in e-commerce, a key to their survival and growth in the pandemic and post-pandemic era. A new OAS SETI Facebook initiative provided 85,000 MSMEs across the region with capacity building opportunities and WhatsApp business tools to aid response, recovery, and resilience building. The Caribbean Small Business Development Centers program achieved real impact, supporting new businesses, expanding sales, and driving growth. A new network of Caribbean SPDCs will broaden the program's reach. The Inter-American Committee on Tourism, the CTOUR, convened ministerial-level policy dialogue in an urgent response to the impact of the pandemic on the hard-hit tourism and hospitality sectors. Policymakers and experts discussed biosanitary protocols, travel and visa facilitation, among other critical areas for the sector's recovery. Partnering with the George Washington University and the U.S. Bureau of Indian Affairs, we went ahead with the scheduled first Indigenous Tourism Forum of the Americas, pivoting to a virtual format and convening over 240 participants from indigenous communities, the private sector, and governments. SETI also integrated sustainable development practices in the COVID-19 response. The pandemic is a daily reminder of the links between water, health, sanitation, food security, and nutrition. We ensured the continuity of our water management projects in the Plata Basin and worked with governments and partners in the design of an investment portfolio valued at $90 million. Additionally, the Energy and Climate Partnership of the Americas continued to share relevant best practices and responses to the pandemic on energy and air quality. These few examples indicate our collective impact. We cannot do this alone. It is now more urgent than ever to address the region's structural weaknesses, to recover from the health, economic, and social crises occasioned by the pandemic and prepare for future shocks. It is imperative that we work together as we risk losing recent development gains and seeing millions fall back into poverty. It is time for the region to redirect course and pursue a more sustainable, resilient, and equitable future for all. We are in this together.
But the resilience building agenda is too big for any one stakeholder to address acting alone, and simply bringing together stakeholders, whether at the national, subnational, regional, or global level, is not enough. Effective, focused, and sustained coordination among stakeholders is paramount to provide countries with integrated and comprehensive support.
The OAS, as a hemispheric forum and honest broker, must continue to facilitate this process while we work with member states towards the attainment of the 2030 Sustainable Development Agenda. Cooperation, collaboration, and partnerships that include all actors strengthen us, enabling us to be more than the sum of our parts. We can and we must work together. The future of our region depends on it.
Bueno, la CIM tiene una agenda enorme en el tema de democracia y de liderazgos. El primer ámbito tiene que ver con la gobernanza electoral, para que esta gobernanza electoral responda a las necesidades con las que fue creada, y es buscar los espacios de redistribución del poder. Después hay un programa interamericano sobre el liderazgo de las mujeres, donde generamos conocimiento y también tenemos cursos de capacitación. Hay un poderoso curso que ha llegado a más de 1000 mujeres con más de 15 ediciones, que es para candidatas electorales, en las cuales conversamos con ellas, pero también nos ponemos en una agenda de solidaridad y articulación y alianzas entre las mujeres, a pesar de las múltiples diferencias ideológicas o de partidos políticos. También hablamos de los temas de violencia política, porque no es lo mismo llegar que quedarse, y la violencia política es una forma de ejercicio de disciplinar a las mujeres para que vuelvan al mundo de lo privado y enfrentar la violencia, hacer buenas investigaciones, buenas leyes que permitan sancionar la violencia política. Es parte de las aspiraciones de la CIM en este programa de liderazgo de las mujeres. La aspiración histórica de las mujeres es estar en el mundo de lo público, que nuestro trabajo sea remunerado y que tenga un reconocimiento. COVID ha puesto en evidencia una profundización de las brechas existentes para el logro de este objetivo. Estas brechas existentes ahora dan cuenta de que podríamos tener un rezago de más de 2 décadas en el mundo laboral, que el cierre de brechas que se previó que podía tardar 100 años en cerrarse, ahora se habla de 135 años para cerrar la brecha entre los hombres y las mujeres. Entonces nuestro objetivo es que miren el derecho de las mujeres al empoderamiento económico, que el statement "quédate en casa", que es un viejo conocido del patriarcado, no sea que nos quedemos en casa siempre, y que entendamos que la inserción de la mitad de la población, de este talento humano que tiene una serie de ventajas competitivas, es necesario para el crecimiento económico. De manera que la CIM está colocando esta realidad, está colocando las necesidades de las mujeres y está haciendo unas recomendaciones de rutas para poder cumplir con el derecho al empoderamiento económico y con el crecimiento económico que requieren nuestras empobrecidas economías en tiempos de COVID.
Esta organización es el guardián regional en defensa de la democracia, la libertad y los derechos humanos. Los países se han comprometido con estos valores a través de instrumentos legales como la Carta Democrática Interamericana, la Convención Americana de Derechos Humanos y todas las demás convenciones interamericanas. Nuestro trabajo es mantener los más altos estándares. Debemos ser objetivos, analizar los hechos, denunciar cuando veamos corrupción, inequidad o amenazas a la libertad. En esos casos no podemos ser neutrales.
more than 100 years since the inauguration of this building, the OAS headquarters, our institution still brings together the peoples of the Americas to address our responsibilities as a partnership of nations. As we look to the future, our work must also focus on the construction of a positive agenda that continues to favorably impact millions of lives every day.
The COVID-19 pandemic brought unprecedented challenges to all member states and the people we serve. In response, the OAS Secretariat for Integral Development adopted a three-pronged approach by 1. Adjusting our portfolio of existing projects, 2. Exploring new projects to meet emerging needs, and 3. Expanding multi-sectoral partnerships. The results achieved in 2020 demonstrate the resilience of our member states and the commitment of the OAS SETI to work with member states and partners towards our common goals in the development of our region. Our Network on Competitiveness launched the COVID-19 Ideas Accelerator, sharing 250 tools, health solutions, responses, and recovery plans. The Network for Labor Administration published a portfolio of responses from ministries of labor to COVID-19, sharing over 420 measures taken to protect workers, employment, and income. Likewise, the Inter-American Teacher Education Network series, Teaching STEM in Quarantine, provided 117,000 teachers with key tools to continue advancing STEM education during the pandemic. Through its network and platforms, the Inter-American Committee on Ports promoted international and national best practices, guidelines, protocols, and recommendations on COVID-19 safety measures and continuity of logistic operations. Initiatives such as the Education in Times of Change platform allowed us to meet urgent needs by offering timely tools on virtual education and a dedicated space for ministries to share strategies, actions, and solutions. Other programs such as the Row Fund stepped up, providing emergency grants to offset the challenges imposed on our students by the pandemic. SETI's partnerships are adding value to member states in the form of technical assistance, training, and access to tools.
Your seats so we can get started with this morning's session.
Come to their places so we may start our session of this morning. Mr. Chairman, with 28 delegations in the Simon Bolivar, we have quorum to proceed.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much. Good morning once again. Having verified quorum through the Secretariat, I'm honored to declare open the present regular session of the Permanent Council. This was convened to consider the topics contained in the order of business Document CP/OD.2539/25. Pursuant to the provisions of Article 43 of the Rules of Procedure, I submit for consideration of this Permanent Council.
De no haber observaciones,
If there are no observations, we will approve the order of business. Dear colleagues, before we continue with the next item on the order of business, I would like to express our most sincere condolences to Honduras and all of Central America for the tragic loss of Aurelio Martinez, an outstanding musician and representative of Garifuna culture, who passed away on March 17th in an air accident. He was a great ambassador of the Garifuna culture, and this will continue in his culture. We express our condolences to his family and friends and all of those of us who shared his passion for his culture. May his soul rest in peace. Dear colleagues, I would also like to express on behalf of the Permanent Council our most sincere congratulations to the Prime Minister of Canada, Mark Carney, for his election on March 9th as the Prime Minister of Canada. We'd like to take this opportunity to wish him most success, and we reiterate our strong commitment to strengthening cooperation and working hand in hand between the OAS and Canada, with the aim of continuing to promote democracy, human rights, and development and security for citizens of the Americas, as well as freedom and self-determination of our peoples. Similarly, I'd like to express on behalf of the Permanent Council our most sincere congratulations to the people and government of Belize for the successful general elections carried out on March 12th past. We also express warm greetings to Prime Minister John Briceño for his re-election, and we wish him most success in his endeavors. We reiterate our commitment to strengthening cooperation between the OAS and Belize, working hand in hand to continue promoting well-being, democracy, and progress for our people. It is, as always, a great privilege to celebrate the reaffirmation of democracy and institutional strengthening in our brotherly people and government. Dear colleagues, with the aim of optimizing our time available and ensuring an orderly, balanced debate of the topics outlined in the order of business, I'd like to thank you in advance for respecting the 5-minute time limit per intervention pursuant to the provisions of our own rules of procedure. And you all know that we have not and will not cut off the microphone, but we do ask you to be considerate of the use of time, particularly on days like today where we have a very full agenda. Dear colleagues, moving on to the next item on the order of business, I'm delighted to give the floor to the distinguished ambassador and permanent representative of Antigua and Barbuda, Mr. Ronald Sanders. He will be presenting the draft resolution titled Place, Date, and Topic of the 55th regular period of sessions of the General Assembly. This was circulated to all delegations as document CP/doc.6068/25 Rev 1. Before we proceed, please allow me to reiterate the sincere gratitude of member states who met in Asunción during the prior GA. Thank you very much to Antigua and Barbuda's government for selecting the highest body of our organization in its country in the month of June this year. It will be a true delight and pleasure to hold the 55th regular period of sessions of the OAS GA in this beautiful, wonderful Caribbean country. Ambassador Sanders, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, it's an honor for Antigua and Barbuda to be accorded the privilege of hosting the 55th regular session of the General Assembly of the Organization of American States. At the outset, let me thank all delegations and member states for the unanimous support and endorsement of our office to host this important gathering. Antigua and Barbuda looks forward to welcome all of you to St. John's in 3 months' time. We hope that the warmth of our Caribbean atmosphere will foster harmonious discussions as well as fruitful and positive outcomes for our hemisphere. On a lighter note, we trust that a drink of Antigua rum, or maybe 2 or 3 drinks, may contribute to facilitating convivial discussions. We thank Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez and the 2 teams of officials from the General Secretariat who visited Antigua, discovering the attractiveness of our country while satisfying themselves that our conference facilities and hotel accommodations are consistent with international standards. Mr. Chairman, with your permission, allow me now to formally introduce for consideration the draft resolution number CP/Doc 6068/25/Rev1 entitled Place, Date, and Theme of the 55th Regular Session of the General Assembly. This resolution announces that the 55th Regular Session of the General Assembly will be held in St. John's, Antigua and Barbuda from June 25th to 27th, 2025. The resolution also declares that the theme of the Assembly will be Building Resilient, Inclusive Economies in the Americas. We believe this theme resonates with urgent regional concerns, emphasizing the need for resilience and inclusivity as we address the challenges confronting each member state, big and small, and all of them collectively. By using the term building in the theme, we affirm our commitment to sustained and ongoing action. And the inclusive scope of the theme ensures that all member states can highlight their specific priorities within a broader collective framework, underscoring our shared dedication to improving the lives of all the citizens of the Americas. Mr. Chairman, I again express our profound gratitude to this Permanent Council for its continued support and cooperation. We look forward to welcoming you in June 2025, confident that our discussions will foster stronger ties and deliver meaningful outcomes for our hemisphere. And now, Mr. Chairman, I submit the resolution for the consideration of this Council. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, distinguished Ambassador Sanders, for your presentation, and thank you to your government for proposing the topic, Building Resilient and Inclusive Economies in the Americas. This will guide our debates in the upcoming regular period of sessions of the GA. If there are no observations, there are no observations, and so we will hereby adopt the draft resolution presented. Adopted. Distinguished colleagues and distinguished Ambassador, Permanent Representative of Antigua and Barbuda, Ronald Sanders, has a pressing commitment at the State Department in representation of countries of the Western Hemisphere. So I would like to invite him to join us at this table in order to sign the agreement between the government of Antigua and Barbuda and the General Secretariat of the OAS regarding the 55th regular period of sessions of the GA. Ambassador Sanders, please come to the head table.
distinguidas y
Dear colleagues, the chair of the Permanent Council salutes having signed the agreement between the General Secretariat of the OAS and the representation of Antigua and Barbuda. And we celebrate that we have moved forward in preparing for the 55th regular period of sessions of the OAS-GA. Also, we salute the topic chosen, building inclusive and resilient economies in the Americas. This is very timely in this era, not only in the Americas, but worldwide. Dear colleagues, on the next item of the order of business and pursuant to the mandate established in Section 9 of Resolution 3029 of the General Assembly, we now will address the topic entitled Promotion of the Inter-American Parliamentary Commitment. And in this context, we recognize the important role played by legislators in exercise of representative democracy, as well as the importance of interparliamentary organizations in the region as key fora for fomenting dialogue and cooperation at the hemispheric level. Before we continue, I'd like to thank the distinguished delegation of Canada for its leadership and cooperation in considering this very relevant topic on today's order of business. It's an honor to give a warm welcome to the Permanent Council to Senator Blanca Obelar of Paraguay, the chair of Parlamericas, whom I give the floor for her virtual intervention. Senator Obelar, welcome to the Permanent Council, and I give you the use of the floor. Thank you very much, Chair. Warm fraternal greetings to all. Your Excellency, Ambassador Arce, Permanent Representative of Bolivia and Chair of the Permanent Council of the OAS. Mr. Luis Almagro, dear friend, Secretary General of the OAS. Your Excellencies, Ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Francisco Guerrero, Secretary for Strengthening Democracy in the Americas and member ex officio of Parlamericas. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an honor to speak to your excellencies on behalf of Parlamericas pursuant to the mandate established to this end in the resolution Strengthening Democracy adopted by the OAS-GA. During its 54th regular period of sessions, which we were very proud to host in Asunción in June of 2024. The spirit of that resolution resonates with its call for a commitment by the OAS member states to defend democracy, promote dialogue, and strengthening democracy. This is irrefutably vital in today's unprecedented era. Our hemisphere has entered a political, social, and economic context that is very complicated, and we face significant obstacles to democratic governability, political tensions, and worsening social inequalities. A general state of citizens' distrust in institutions. And this has put the resilience of our democracies to the test. We cannot ignore this reality, dear friends. We also see global crises which are growing in intensity, such as climate change, and this has an unequal impact on the most vulnerable. The social and economic ramifications of the COVID-19 pandemic have not yet disappeared, and we see setbacks in also obstacles to promoting science and technology. And some of these indicators are the most visible indicators that we face when we are looking at how we can harness our full potential while also moving through the AI and digital revolution. This means that it is more pressing than ever that we have a coordinated vision of the future in hemispheric spaces where decisions are made. to ensure that our democratic institutions are more inclusive and that we are capable of responding to the ever-changing needs of our people. Yet, we are not trying to be the harbinger of crises. Quite the contrary, we must reiterate the value and relevance of multilateralism in these spaces as an essential component to forging shared solutions to shared challenges. Multilateralism is not only a tenet of democracy, it is sine qua non to guaranteeing stability, security, and prosperity for our entire hemisphere. And yet, its efficiency depends on our ability to overcome the challenges we face. Multilateralism, with a clear awareness of the human dignity we all deserve, allow us to set this shared destination that we dream of for ourselves and our people, for the present and future generations. That is why we must continue to build a dynamic and inclusive multilateralism that can translate to international concrete actions to address the realities that our inhabitants in the Americas and the Caribbean face. As part of this, we must include parliaments as part of our multilateral processes to strengthen our representation, reiterate our legitimacy, and ensure we are capable of building lasting consensus. Renewed, truly effective multilateralism cannot simply be empty words by governments. We must recognize parliaments as an expression of political will. This is necessary to moving forward to the future that we all aspire to. We not only legislate, we represent the political diversity of our democracies. We channel the aspirations of our citizens. And our active participation in multilateralism now runs the risk of digressing from the will of our people. We must incorporate the parliamentary dimension in multilateralism, and this is indispensable if we are going to ensure that the decisions adopted at the highest bodies reflect the realities of our societies and have the political support necessary to be implemented. Thus, parliamentary diplomacy is more than just an instrument for cooperation. It is an essential component of democratic governance. Your Excellencies, parliamentary participation in the inter-American system cannot be merely symbolic. We must go beyond symbolism. We must be effective. We must be a meaningful component of hemispheric governance. Therefore, we must have institutional spaces that are not merely places for coordination, but to strengthen the role of parliaments in multilateral fora, to ensure that they comprehensively contribute to the decision-making process. And this is the role of the parliament. For over 20 years now, our organization has been a meeting place for legislators from all political corners, a space for interparliamentary dialogue where we go beyond our differences and become a mechanism for the common good. In Parliamericas, members of Parliament have a place to address the most pressing issues of the hemispheric agenda, and we are able to move forward as we implement the agreements signed by member states. And through this, we translate our actions into real decisions for the good of our people. And over the last year, we have worked to address critical topics such as migration, security, democracy, and human rights, as well as the sustainable work that we have developed to move forward in implementing the commitments stemming from the 9th Summit of the Americas. These efforts have taken place and been reflected in a report that has been distributed detailing our recent activities, highlighting the contributions of each of our parliaments as part of this process. Thus, Parliamericas not only seeks to observe regional governance, we seek to be a committed stakeholder to its evolution. We must improve the governance of our people. We are going through challenging times, and we see pressing calls for a response. States have lost much room for maneuvering in the face of these challenges, and we see overwhelming challenges looming over our decisions. And for the Americas, that is why we cannot simply observe regional governance. We must be a committed stakeholder to its evolution. We must work to effectively contribute to strengthening multilateralism, and for many, this represents an advantage. The message is clear. The voice of our colleagues enriches multilateralism and makes it more representative. It brings us closer to the citizens we represent. This political horizon has been reflected in our strategic plan 2025-2030, which is a document written with contributions from MPs and a wide range of stakeholders at the regional level to moving forward in our founding vision of ensuring parliamentary diplomacy and facilitating the participation of MPs in the inter-American system. Before I conclude, I would like to inform you that it has been a pleasure to inform you that next week, on the 25th to 27th of March, we will be visiting Washington, D.C. as part of an annual Parliamericas delegation. And the delegation and its trip to Washington is part of our commitment to the provisions of the resolution on strengthening democracy. At this opportunity, we will take part in high-level meetings and dialogue sessions under the aegis of multidimensional security and regional security parliamentary perspectives. Thus, we hope to contribute to the democratic process and decision-making and come up with solutions to the challenges we face as MPs when it comes to the security of our region, with the aim of ensuring that the agreements signed reflect the needs and concerns of our citizens. This is an opportunity to extend a warm invitation to all of you to join us in these sessions for dialogue to be held during our visits. Prior to today's meeting, you have all received the agenda, and it will be an honor and a delight to see all of you there personally in Washington to continue to share our common views and solidarity on behalf of strengthening multilateralism and improving our governance and the destination of our people. Finally, I would like to give special thanks on behalf of Parliamericas to His Excellency, the Ambassador and Chair of the Permanent Council of the OAS, for his efforts in ensuring our presence today. Ambassador Arce, thank you very much to you. Also, we recognize and appreciate Secretary General Almagro for his leadership at the helm of the OAS and his tireless support to our efforts at the OAS, consolidating parliamentary participation and building a dialogue that is much closer to our people and the inter-American system. We appreciate your dedication to democracy and regional diplomacy, as well as your efforts to promote multilateralism and dialogue. We wish you most success in your future endeavors, and we trust that we will continue to contribute to the development of our hemisphere and democracy wherever you go. Your Excellencies, your ambassadors, strengthening our democracies depends more than ever on our ability to renew multilateralism and consolidate a space for political dialogue that is inclusive, with solidarity, and strengthened in the face of the dangers and challenges that we all face on the horizon from the world stage. We have so much wealth to contribute in our hemisphere for our American citizens throughout the continent, and they need better governance. They need, dear Senator,
we need more inclusive governance. Senator, I'm going to have to ask you to wrap it up now. Would you kindly wrap up? This work cannot be put off. We have to work together. And once again, I'm very happy that you gave me the opportunity. And I hope that we can meet together so that we continue and pick up our dialogue. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Senator Ovalar, for your comments and for sharing us your perspective on parliamentary commitment in the Americas. We appreciate your time and your dedication. We'll be very happy to meet you next week. Next, I'm pleased to welcome Honorable Bridget Ansiet George, Speaker of the House of Representatives of Trinidad and Tobago and Vice President of Parliamentarians. We appreciate your participation on this panel, and I should like to give you the floor to continue with your comments for 7 minutes. Madam Vice President, welcome to the Permanent Council. You have the floor. Microphone, please, for the speaker. Microphone, please.
¿Puede habilitar su micrófono?
Would you kindly turn on your microphone?
As the Zaconeta, Permanent Representative of Bolívar and President of the Permanent Council of the Organization of American States. Mr. Luis Almargo, Secretary General of the Organization of American States, distinguished ambassadors, Dr. Francisco Guerrero, Secretary for Strengthening Democracy at the Organization of American States and ex officio member of the Parliamentarians Board of Directors. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is an honor to address you today on behalf of Parliamentarians and to complement the remarks delivered by our President, Senator Blanca Uvelar. Your Excellencies, in a rapidly evolving world, parliaments must not only respond to challenges, but anticipate them. The pace of change, driven by technological advancements, geopolitical shifts, and emerging crises, demands legislative action that is adaptive, informed, and firmly rooted in the democratic principles and values we share. Parliamentarians has remained steadfast in its commitment to addressing emerging issues and to convening legislators from across the Americas and the Caribbean in order to facilitate dialogue, build consensus, and advance legislative solutions. Our work not only responds to the priorities and expectations of our constituents, but also aligns with the political commitments set at the highest levels of the inter-American system, reinforcing the role of parliamentary engagement in shaping our collective future. I wish, therefore, to highlight the role and function that Parliamentarians serves under the rubric of 1, responding to key hemispheric challenges, 2, shaping the parliaments of the future, 3, as a strategic platform for Caribbean parliamentary engagement. Parliamentarians responding to key hemispheric challenges. Some of the most critical challenges shaping our hemisphere today, like migration, security, sustainable development, climate change, democracy and human rights, and the impact of emerging technologies are deeply interconnected. They demand legislative action that is collaborative, forward-thinking, and rooted in democratic values. Some of these issues will also take center stage at the 10th Summit of the Americas, which will focus on advancing a comprehensive approach to human security. Parliamericas has been actively engaging parliamentarians on the critical topics that are intrinsic to human security, including transnational organized crime, food security, human rights, and climate resilience, ensuring that legislative perspectives contribute to regional strategies and that parliamentary action complements and reinforces hemispheric commitments. Parliaments play a critical role in shaping policy responses that not only address immediate concerns, but also anticipate future risks. Whether through strengthening migration governance, ensuring regional security frameworks remain robust, advancing climate action and sustainable development, or preparing for the disruptive effects of artificial intelligence, legislators must work together to craft solutions that are inclusive, effective, and durable. Parliamericas has consistently provided a space for legislators to engage in these discussions, exchange best practices, and develop policy commitments that reinforce hemispheric cooperation. Through our interparliamentary dialogues, we have seen firsthand how collaboration among national legislatures strengthens the resilience of our democratic institutions and ensures that no country feels and faces the challenges alone. Parliamericas shaping the parliaments of the future. As the nature of governance evolves, so too must our parliaments. The way we legislate, engage with citizens, and develop policies is being reshaped by new technologies, shifting global dynamics, and changing societal expectations. The future of our institutions will depend on our ability to adapt to these transformations while remaining effective and representative of the people we serve. This is why Parliamericas serves as a forum for legislators to explore and exchange ideas on the evolving role of parliaments, not just in response to current challenges, but in preparation for those that lie ahead. Through dialogues on modernizing legislative practices, embracing digital innovation, and rethinking traditional policy-making approaches, we are collectively envisaging the next generation of parliaments, ones that are more agile, inclusive, and capable of meeting the demands of a rapidly changing world. Parliamericas as a strategic platform for Caribbean parliamentary engagement. Your Excellencies, it would not only be remiss of me, but it will be unforgivable if I close my remarks without reflecting on the value of Parliamericas from the perspective as a legislator from the Caribbean. The Caribbean is an integral part of the Americas. Yet, the unique realities of our nations, particularly small island developing states, often require tailored policy solutions that reflect our distinct economic, environmental, and governance challenges. For Caribbean legislators, engaging in hemispheric discussions is paramount to ensure that regional policies account for the particularities of our countries. Parlaméricas provides an essential space for this engagement. Through interparliamentary dialogues, it facilitates direct collaboration between Caribbean legislators and our peers across the Western Hemisphere, enabling the development of shared legislative approaches to common challenges. From migration governance to climate resilience to security cooperation and democratic governance, Parlaméricas ensures that Caribbean representatives are not just present, but that their voices actively shape the regional agenda. Moreover, Parlaméricas serves as a bridge between Caribbean legislators and the broader inter-American system, creating opportunities for meaningful parliamentary participation in hemispheric discussions. In doing so, it reinforces the role of Caribbean parliaments as key actors, ensuring that our priorities, challenges, and legislative innovations are part of the wider political and policy discussion shaping the future of our region. Your Excellencies, in closing, it is indisputable that the challenges before us demand a shared commitment to cooperation, innovation, and the enduring principles of democracy that uphold our nations. As legislators, we have a duty to ensure that policies we shape today lay the foundation for a more stable, prosperous, and inclusive future. Parlaméricas remains resolute in its commitment to fostering Parliament cooperation, strengthening legislative engagement with the inter-American system, and ensuring that our democracies are prepared to meet the demands of an evolving world. At a time when global uncertainties continue to test our institutions, our ability to work together, to share knowledge, to build consensus, and to uphold democratic governance has never been more vital. I encourage all of us to continue strengthening the bonds between our national legislatures and regional institutions, deepening our cooperation and reaffirming our shared commitment to addressing the urgent priorities of our hemisphere. As we look to the future, allow me to take a moment to congratulate Foreign Minister Albert Ramdin of Suriname on his election as Secretary General of the Organization of American States. His appointment is particularly significant as he becomes the first Secretary General from the Caribbean, a historic milestone that reflects the diversity and richness of our hemisphere. His experience in multilateral diplomacy and regional cooperation will undoubtedly serve the OAS and its member states well in this new chapter. Parliamericas looks forward to continuing to work closely with the OAS under the leadership of the incoming Secretary General Ramdin to foster parliamentary engagement to advance democracy, human rights, security, and sustainable development across the Americas and the Caribbean. I thank you all.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency and Siet George, for your speech and for sharing with us your vision on the role of parliaments in the promotion of democracy and the inter-American commitment. We truly appreciate your very valuable contribution as well to multilateralism. Next, I'll offer the floor to delegations that wish to refer to this item on the agenda. Mexico has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The delegation of Mexico would like to commend and truly appreciate the participation of the President of Parliamericas, the Senator from Paraguay, Blanco Velar, and the Vice President of Parliamericas and Chair of the Chamber of Representatives of Trinidad and Tobago, Bridget and C.H. George. Both of them have shared the valuable work that the legislators of the hemisphere do in this interparliamentary forum and how the parliamentary work nourishes multilateralism, which serves to improve everyone's life. The General Assembly of 2024 mandated promoting the Inter-American Parliamentary Commitment and established the annual presentation of a Parliamericas report before the Permanent Council to institutionalize a space for dialogue between the OAS and Parliamericas, thus crystallizing this forum as a key stakeholder in the inter-American system. The presentation that we heard from Parliamericas today also shows us the strategic value that diplomacy and parliaments play to facilitate striking consensuses in areas that are a priority on the hemispheric agenda, and the importance when it comes to strengthening relations among states, thus leading to political dialogue and cooperation amongst the lawmaking bodies of the region. Mexico celebrates the active participation of Mexican legislators in Parliamericas. They have taken on leadership in various areas in the organization. Particularly, we recognize the work of Senator Veronica Camino Farjat, the second Vice President of Parliamericas and President of the Parliamentary Network for Gender Equality, as well as Representative Antares Vasquez, a member of the board for North America. In addition, we recognize the firm commitment of Canada in hosting Parliamericas in Ottawa and strengthening its work for more than 2 decades. We would like to offer or make a clarion call to member states to continue to support this interparliamentary forum, convinced that legislative dialogue is a bedrock to strengthen democracy and promote understanding, cooperation, and development of more inclusive societies. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Mexico. The delegation of Brazil has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would like to greet and thank Senator Blanca Villa, President of Parliamericas, and Mrs. Bridget and Lisa George, Vice President, for their contributions. This is fundamental for a pluralistic dialogue of ideas and popular participation for the destiny of any nation. The OAS, that is wedded to democracy and the Charter, has a firm, well-balanced commitment, and for this reason, Brazil embraces the dialogue between Parliamericas and the OAS. We truly value this initiative for a dialogue which allows us to be aware of the Parliamericas activities and to exchange ideas in the work that guides us in this council and the organization in a much more far-reaching way. Made up of elected representatives of people in the Americas, Parliamericas has the potential of moving towards more fair societies and being aware of OAS's work amongst its 4 strategic pillars. We particularly embrace the decision to broach a topic of migration and socio-environmental challenges. These challenges are common challenges throughout the region, and these and other problems that we have to grapple with, such as hunger, poverty, insecurity, climate change, discrimination against vulnerable groups, require collaborative action with the participation not just of the executive branches, but all the branches of the state. We see Americas, and we are grateful that they've taken on the mandate of the OAS and to be an ally in the quest for solutions to the grave problems in the region. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Paraguay has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My delegation truly appreciates the inclusion of this topic, promoting parliamentary inter-American commitment on the agenda of this session in compliance with what is established in the respective section of the Omnibus Resolution on strengthening democracy, which was approved at the 54th General Assembly that took place in Asunción last June. As a demonstration of our commitment to parliamentary work, and as we've done in other years, this section has had the co-sponsorship of Paraguay. Mr. Chairman, we truly appreciate the presentations of Parliamerica's President, Mrs. Ovelar from my country, whose leadership and commitment has been underscored as she has headed up this institution of parliamentarians from 35 countries to promote dialogue and the quest for agreements on topics that are of common interest that allow us to lead to more fair and sustainable societies. We also appreciate the comments made by Mrs. Bridget Anisette George, President of the House of Representatives of Trinidad and Tobago and Vice President of Parliamericas. We truly believe that it is of utmost importance to continue strengthening dialogue and cooperation throughout the parliaments in the region concerning the crucial role that legislative branches have in representative democracies, particularly given the challenges that have been mentioned by the President of Parliamericas in her speech. And then lastly, we underscore the value of Parliamericas as a very relevant germane space so that men and women alike who are congressmen in the Americas can exchange ideas and experiences that contribute to democratic governance and the well-being of our peoples. We are very satisfied to have the opportunity to continue our talks and an exchange of opinions with the delegation of Parliamericas, which will be in Washington next week. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much, Ambassador. It is an honor to have Mrs. Ovelar from your country here, and according to the program that has brought us together with Parliamericas, and that will be here next week. We'll be happy to receive them. The Dominican Republic. The mission of the Dominican Republic would like to thank the presentations from Senator Blanco Ovelar, President of Parliamericas, and the Vice President, Mrs. Bridget Anisette George. In their presentations, we recognize the commitment of our legislative bodies with the quest for shared solutions in the face of hemispheric challenges, and that reflect the contributions made by parliamentarians and how this feeds into strengthening democracy, security, and the promotion of human rights and sustainable development in the region. In this regard, then, we particularly would like to underscore the declaration of the 20th parliamentary plenary held in Paraguay last May that underscores the essential role played by parliamentarians in the defense of democracy and the rule of law. Transparency, citizens' participation, and protection of human rights. And it reaffirms how germane the Inter-American Democratic Charter is and underscores the role of legislators in the fight against disinformation and other areas. They have spearheaded work where legislators can get together and rally around common actions and principles. This we have seen in the comments made on the crisis in our hemisphere, particularly looking at the situation in Venezuela and Haiti. With regard to the Dominican Republic, we would like to highlight that our National Congress has been a very active member in all of the Parliamericas initiatives. Currently, Mrs. Suarez hold the vice presidency for the Caribbean of the Parliamentary Network for Climate Change and Sustainability. In addition to that, in the last 3 years, more than 50 legislators, men and women alike, and legislative officials from the Dominican Republic have participated in 17 different activities organized by Parlamericas. In March 2024, a high-level delegation of the Dominican Senate in Washington presented a blueprint to strengthen parliamentary participation in the OAS through Parlamericas. This was embraced graciously by member states. Mr. Chairman, Parlamericas represents a very suitable platform to have cooperative dialogue, to have an exchange of good practices, and to build consensuses on topics which are a priority for our hemispheric agenda. We reaffirm our willingness to continue to strengthen these ties for cooperation, the work of which complements and makes the efforts of member states even stronger as we rally around the basic pillars of this organization. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dominican Republic. Canada has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Canada first would like to thank their panelists for their excellent presentations on strengthening parliamentary diplomacy for the inter-American system. We are very happy to fully participate with Parlamericas and to actively participate in their activities through all of the different activities Parlamericas has in Canada. 132 Canadians are a part of it. We recognize that strengthening democracy, building prosperity, and an improvement of social conditions, or I should say economic conditions, are a priority of our hemisphere. And the Canadian section was set up to encourage participation of parliamentarians in the inter-American system and is a great place for exchange to shore up present relations with the current legislators of member states of the OAS, and a place to periodically meet to typically discuss these topics that are of common interest in English.
Is a key partner for Canada in the region. Parlamericas, formerly known as the Interparliamentary Forum for the Americas, was created in 2001 through an inaugural meeting hosted by the Parliament of Canada in Ottawa to coincide with the third summit of the Americas in Quebec City. Canada welcomes Parlamericas' efforts to promote parliamentary diplomacy in the American system. Its areas of focus include gender equality, open parliament, and climate change. All represent important issues for the Americas. Canada is proud to work with Parlamericas to foster gender-responsive parliamentary governance across 19 Latin American and 14 Caribbean states through regional network building, technical assistance, capacity development of parliamentarians and women's rights organizations and civil society. Canada also collaborates with Parlamericas to address the political, structural, and legislative barriers to gender equality and women's empowerment in the Americas. Canada will continue to engage in parliamentary diplomacy and to build partnerships to strengthen democracy, promote human rights, and sustainable development in the Americas. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Canada.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Assistant Secretary General Nestor Mendez, distinguished prominent representatives, colleagues, alternates, good morning. Chair, at the outset, I thank you for convening this meeting, which provides an opportunity for member states of the OAS to be apprised of the work and activities of Parlamericas in our hemisphere. I also thank Senator Blanca Ovelar of Paraguay and President of Parlamericas and the Honorable Brigid Anisette George, Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, and Vice President of Parlamericas for their insightful remarks which provide the context for our deliberations this morning. Mr. Chairman, for more than 2 decades, Parlamericas, in collaboration with the Government of Canada and other member states has served as a useful forum for political dialogue on issues of importance to the hemisphere and exchange on legislative practices, advancing the principle of democracy, transparency, good governance, and accountability. Given the complex contemporary realities of our hemisphere currently faces as it relates to inter-alia migration, crime and violence, food insecurity, rising inequality, the role of Parliamericas in bringing our countries together is even more significant. Parliamericas has recently launched its strategic plan 2025 to 2030, which will serve as a roadmap for strengthening parliamentary diplomacy with the aim of fostering regional integration and stability and promoting the participation of parliamentarians from the Americas and the Caribbean in the inter-American system. Jamaica is grateful for the specific role that Parliamericas has played in advancing national development. Parliamericas has been providing technical assistance to Jamaica's parliament to support the establishment of the bicameral Women's Parliamentary Caucus, which is aimed at improving networking among women parliamentarians for improved advocacy, facilitating ongoing constructive dialogue on issues of importance among women parliamentarians across party lines and chambers, and supporting professional development for improved capacity building and leadership for increased participation in the legislative process. The first in a series of training opportunities for women parliamentarians from both sides of the political divide was held at a retreat in December 2022 to provide support for the work of these women in achieving inclusive and effective outcomes for their constituents and continued implementation of the national policy for gender equality. I'm also pleased to report that in February 2023, members of the House of Representatives approved a motion for the establishment of the first Women's Parliamentary Bicameral Caucus in Jamaica. Parliamericas has also been implementing the Young Women in Leadership Jamaica initiative in partnership with the Caribbean Women, the Houses of Parliament, and the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport, which draws together over 50 young women leaders across the island for training sessions, and transformational leadership, gender equality, parliamentary procedure. It is noted that Jamaica's Senator Dr. Safia Longmore serves on the board of directors and has represented organization in various regional activities on gender equality. I conclude by once again conveying appreciation to Parliamericas for the outstanding work it has been doing in Jamaica and across the hemisphere in collaboration with the kind support of the Government of Canada and other member states through Global Affairs Canada. Jamaica looks forward to continued engagement with the organization in the months and years ahead. I thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Jamaica. Costa Rica has the floor. Good morning, Chair. Ladies and gentlemen, dear permanent representatives, delegates, it's an honor for my delegation to take the floor at this permanent council to highlight the valuable role played by Parliamericas in promoting political dialogue and parliamentary cooperation in our region. For over 20 years, this organization has played an important role for exchanging best practices in the legislature, building consensus, and strengthening decision-making processes in Parliament. Similarly, thank you for the valuable presentation from Ms. Blanca Olivar, Senator in Paraguay and Chair of Parliamericas. Also, thank you very much to Ms. Anisette George, the Chair of the Chamber of Representatives of Trinidad and Tobago. The relationship between Parliamericas and OAS has historically been very meaningful and important for promoting interinstitutional cooperation through its various strategic visions and agreements. Against this backdrop, we are grateful for spaces for political coordination in the Americas to hear contributions from MPs in debates in the Americas and address the implementation of agreements signed by the OAS member states. Costa Rica is firmly committed to Parlamericas. Currently, in our representation, we have MP Carolina Garval in the Council of Parlamericas for Central America, Oscar Izquierdo as the Vice Chair for Central America in the Committee on Sustainability and Climate Change, and Maria Alpizar as Vice Chair for Central America in the Open Parliamentary Network. And this is a show of our commitment to Parlamericas. We have noted in our Legislative Assembly the role of MPs as key in our efforts, and this includes the Parliamentary Network on Sustainability and Climate Change and the 16th meeting of the Parliamentary Network for Gender Equality to address social and environmental challenges. Similarly, our legislators have actively taken part in international fora promoting democracy, gender equality, and transparency in legislature. To conclude, Chair, we would like to reiterate our recognition for the work of Parlamericas and its contribution to democracy and parliamentary cooperation in the region. We will continue to strengthen this space for collaboration and cooperation to move forward toward more democratic and inclusive, sustainable societies. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Costa Rica. Bolivia is recognized.
Gracias, señor presidente. Agradecemos las presentaciones.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the distinguished panelists for their presentations. And we highlight the important role played by Parlamericas in strengthening multilateralism and promoting the inter-American human rights system, as well as progress in working in various committees and mechanisms of the OAS. Building political, cooperative, and collaboration dialogue with parliaments on hemispheric issues that impact the people of our region is certainly a very important task, and it allows us to build consensus beyond the party interests. We live in an international context that is quite complicated due to the many crises that pose a threat, such as the climate crisis, economic crisis, and food crisis, among others. Certainly, these issues must be addressed as a priority from multilateral bodies under the framework of inclusion, equality, mutual respect, and cooperation between states, promoting and defending human rights, civil, political, economic, and social, and cultural, environmental rights as well, must be a priority for the multilateralism agenda, as well as tireless defense of democracy, the right to development, sustainable development, and the right of people to live in peace. Similarly, we believe it's very important for Parlamericas to promote the right to live free of any racism or form of discrimination. And in this sense, from our country, we promote the depatriarchalization and decolonization of our societies with the following objectives: to give value to ancestral knowledge and wisdom from our indigenous peoples, and this includes conserving and preserving the Mother Earth and valuing the participation of women in decision-making at all levels of government. Thank you once again for participation from representatives of Parlamericas in today's session of the Permanent Council, and we wish you most success in your 2025, in your meetings for March 2025 to 27th of this year in D.C. Thank you very much, Bolivia. Chile. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you for the presentation from Senator Obelar, and also thank you very much to Representative Anisette George. These representatives are part of Parlamericas and the work of that organization. We do that because on days like today, we are able to facilitate these communication channels, which are here for us to collaborate between the people of different states, which need to meet with more frequency, more often in international fora. It's also worth noting that in many of our countries, Chair, the foreign policy is led by the executive branch. Chile is one example of that, and we see a lot of hostility toward this idea of parliamentary diplomacy. How can that parliamentary diplomacy interfere with foreign policy carried out by the executive branch? In that sense, from Chile, we believe that parliamentary dialogue and interparliamentary dialogue are a useful complementary tool for reaching the targets that we have set for ourselves, that is respect for human rights, more robust democracy, more inclusive, fair, egalitarian societies. And it seems that meeting with parliamentarians allows us to move forward when goals might look further away from the national perspective. And so thank you very much for the work carried out by the Parliamericas, and we have Deputy Milosevic and Carmen Gloria Avena, who are the first vice chairs for Parliamericas networks. Now, our assessment of the work of Parliamericas, it not only addresses the theory of parliamentary dialogue, which of course is important, but it also recognizes that when we are reviewing our most recent agreements, there are many points of convergence that we can discuss here. For example, I quote, the latest agreement on migration in a context of environmental and social crises. Another talks about building partnerships to strengthen democracy and promoting human rights. Or Parliamericas agreement on hemispheric security. And we see a lot of complementarity and synergy here for how we can move forward toward our common goals. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you to the Chilean delegation. Colombia is recognized. Good morning, Chair, and good morning to all of you, members of the head table, members and representatives and alternate representatives of member states. Thank you for your presentations. Thank you to the Chair and Vice Chair of Parliamericas. As we have already recognized on other occasions, since Parliamericas was created, we have seen an excellent space for coming together created for those who are leaders in Latin America and the Caribbean to work and coordinate with the OAS and jointly implement solutions for shared challenges and emerging issues that we must address. We celebrate that the Executive Committee for the Parliamentary Network on Climate Change and Sustainability in Parliamericas has met this very month to exchange ideas on environmental challenges which are most urgent and explore initiatives that are transformative to addressing those issues. And we are pleased with the creation of a strategic partnership between the Andean Parliament and Parliamericas to strengthen coordination between parliaments. And we take due note of the important conclusions reached at the meeting of Parliamericas on the Andean Parliament with regard to methane emissions as a key tool for addressing climate change and promoting sustainable development. We celebrate that at that meeting there was a very important emphasis on decoupling environment and the economy, as well as frameworks for reducing emissions in line with the global commitment on methane emissions and in preparation for COP30 to be held this year in Brazil. We also highlight the studies carried out over the last year and many opportunities provided to reflect within various competencies on regional and global issues, as well as shared interests in areas of special interest, such as strengthening democracy, human rights, climate change, sustainable development, equality for women, women's empowerment and leadership, digital spaces free of violence, AI, transparency and accountability, among others. We are also delighted with drafting the 2025-2030 strategic plan, and we trust that Parliamericas will continue to spare no efforts in ensuring that our parliaments are able to learn from one another based on their experiences, debates, and perspectives, leveraging best practices and strategies which can better respond to the urgent problems we face at the national and hemispheric levels, based on collaboration and solidarity, and therefore, Chair, we urge Parlamericas to fight against two major vices which beset the quality of legislative work and which today have increasingly come up in the Colombian parliament. The illusion of debate through withdrawing from parliament to ensure that there is no quorum is one of these vices, and we share that above all. Avoiding that in democracies we debate bills is one of the most flagrant attacks that we have seen on democracy and legislature. And secondly, rather than substantial, meaningful, concrete debates on behalf of the entire country, preventing hate speech in Latin American parliaments. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your words. The United States is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On behalf of the United States, I thank the President and Vice President of Parlamericas for their presentations today. Today's dialogue is pertinent as together we confront regional challenges that test the resilience of our institutions and the efficacy of our democratic systems. The United States remains committed to fostering meaningful engagement between national legislatures and this organization in alignment with the principles enshrined in the Inter-American Democratic Charter. We recognize the pivotal role that elected legislators play in ensuring democratic accountability, transparency, and the representation of our citizens' interests. Institutions like Parlamericas can be instrumental in advancing these ideals and enhancing interparliamentary dialogue within the inter-American system. However, the presence of representatives from criminal regimes like the ones in Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela within Parlamericas raises serious concerns. These regimes have systematically dismantled democratic institutions, silenced, oppressed, and exiled opposition voices, and engaged in gross human rights violations. Their participation in an organization dedicated to legislative cooperation and democratic values undermines the very principles Parlamericas seeks to uphold and strengthen. Mr. Chair, the United States calls for a reevaluation of the inclusion of these regimes in regional interparliamentary engagements and urges stronger measures to ensure that only legitimate, democratically elected representatives participate in these discussions. The OAS Legislative Engagement Act of 2020 underscores the United States' dedication to integrating parliamentary perspectives into OAS activities, particularly in advancing human rights, combating corruption, and strengthening democratic governance. The U.S. Senate has advocated for establishing a hemispheric parliamentary assembly akin to the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe Parliamentary Assembly to provide a structured framework for legislative engagement. We recognize that realizing such initiatives necessitates broad regional consensus and institutional coordination to ensure their effectiveness and inclusivity. We are cognizant of the distinct perspectives among OAS member states regarding this approach. While some delegations have expressed support for enhancing parliamentary participation within the OAS framework, others have voiced reservation about formalizing a parliamentary body within this organization. The United States respects these viewpoints and welcomes a principled approach that strengthens cooperation between executive and legislative branches while preserving the OAS's role as an intergovernmental entity. To this end, we continue to engage with both advocates and skeptics of expanded legislative participation through the OAS, ensuring that interparliamentary engagement aligns with this organization's core mission. We would also recall that our General Assembly has affirmed that the Secretariat for Strengthening Democracy serves as the recognized OAS point of contact to facilitate interaction and cooperation on legislative engagement. Chair, we urge all member states to remain vigilant against the infiltration of authoritarian regimes into democratic spaces. The presence of illegitimate actors representing the Maduro regime in Venezuela or representatives of the Ortega Murillo dictatorship's rubber-stamped National Assembly from Nicaragua, or the Cuban Communist Party within interparliamentary dialogues undermines the credibility of these discussions. These regimes have demonstrated a clear disregard for democratic norms, rule of law, and human rights and should not be afforded the same platform as freely and transparently elected representatives. The United States will continue to work with regional partners to ensure that organizations like Parlamerica's remain forums for genuine democratic exchange, not tools for authoritarian manipulation. In closing, the United States looks forward to ongoing discussions on integrating parliamentary perspectives into OAS initiatives in a manner that respects this organization's institutional framework while enhancing democratic governance throughout the Americas. We stand ready to collaborate with partners in pursuit of these objectives. Thank you.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much to the United States. Peru is recognized. At the outset, we salute the celebration of the agreement with Antigua and Barbuda to hold the 55th regular session of the GA of the OAS in that country. We are certain that it will be an excellent opportunity to debate the institutional fundamentals that require building resilient and inclusive economies in the Americas, open markets, and the rule of law. Chair. Peru thanks you for promoting the commitment of inter-American parliaments in compliance with Resolution AG 3029 LEB 24 adopted last year in Asunción, Paraguay. Peru also thanks you for the presentations from Blanca Abelar, a senator from Paraguay and chair of Parlaméricas, and Anisette George, the chair of the Chamber of Representatives of Trinidad and Tobago and vice chair of Parlaméricas. Today, we would like to reiterate the importance played by parliaments in our countries, and Parliament is the very ideal of democratic pluralism and government by debate, and is part of the idea that no one is the owner of truth. We are all closer to it and limited, and therefore resolving public affairs requires debate from many perspectives. Parliamentary diplomacy can accelerate cooperation between the parliaments of our countries in order to identify and adopt best parliamentary practices. Similarly, it can contribute to debating the topics we address in our organization. Therefore, we greatly value that the Secretariat for Strengthening Democracy is an link between the parliamentary organizations of the hemisphere, and Peru will continue to support deepening dialogue between inter-American parliaments as established in many agreements between the Permanent Council and the documents stemming from the Summit of the Americas. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Peru, Panama is recognized. Thank you, Chair. First of all, thank you for including this item on the order of business today, and it is a full reflection of the important role played by parliaments in democracy and governance in our nations. Similarly, I would like to extend our gratitude to Senator Blanca Abelar, who is the chair of Parlaméricas, and Ms. Bridget Anisette George, the chair of the Chamber of Representatives of Trinidad and Tobago and vice chair of Parlaméricas, for their valuable presentations, and we have taken due note. The role of national parliaments in consolidating democratic governments is fundamental. As spaces for deliberation and representation, parliaments are responsible for ensuring respect for democratic principles, transparency, and inclusion of all voices in the decision-making process. In this context, Parlaméricas has been a key stakeholder in promoting the exchange of best practices in legislatures, interparliamentary cooperation, and strengthening capacities for addressing shared challenges in our region. Since its creation, Parlaméricas has facilitated dialogue between representatives of the entire hemisphere, promoting initiatives in areas such as gender equality, open parliament, and environmental sustainability. Its Strategic Plan 2025-2030 establishes a very clear roadmap to continuing to promote parliamentary diplomacy, consolidating the participation of parliaments in the inter-American system, and building spaces for collaboration with other multilateral stakeholders and civil society. Panama has been a staunch ally of Parlamericas and the inter-American commitment to strengthening our democracy. The National Assembly of Panama, of which I was part last year as an alternate deputy, has been a space for important encounters between parliaments, focusing on transparency, inclusion, and institutional strengthening. The participation of our members of parliament in various initiatives at Parlamericas is a reflection of our interest in moving forward toward a modern, representative legislative agenda in line with democratic values, which we all share in this hemisphere. In a global context beset by challenges to human rights and democracy, which are increasingly complex, the role of parliaments is extremely important when it comes to preventing cooperation, promoting social inclusion, and others. Parliaments are able to drive sustainable changes on behalf of our societies. We reiterate once again our commitment from the Republic of Panama to the principles that guide the work of Parlamericas. We urge you all to continue building spaces for dialogue and collaboration between parliaments of the region, and we fully believe that cooperation is a key tool for consolidating our democracies and the well-being of our people. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ambassador. Guatemala is recognized. Thank you very much, Chair. It's an honor to speak to all of you following the presentation and the declarations adopted by parliamentarians in the Americas and the Caribbean in the framework of the interparliamentary hemispheric meetings driven by Parlamericas since 2024. And we remind you that Parlamericas was created with the aim of promoting parliamentarian participation in the Americas and contribute to interparliamentary dialogue on important hemispheric issues pursuant to the resolution 1653/99 of the GA from the OAS. This is a fundamental issue for MPs of the region so they can respond to the needs of our populations. And in 2024, Parlamericas addressed it through its pronouncements, issues related to stability in the region, development, and fundamental rights of our people. And I underscore that they discussed the migratory crisis in our hemisphere and the essential role played by parliaments in strengthening democracy and promoting human rights. Strengthening democracy in our region requires a ongoing commitment from all government institutions and in large part from parliaments, which play a crucial role in drafting laws, representation of citizens, and accountability. Against this backdrop, Guatemala reiterates its commitment with Parlamericas. It's an institution that promotes parliamentary diplomacy and exchange of best practices in legislatures while strengthening the rule of law. Guatemalan legislators took part in the last Parliamentary Assembly of Parlamericas and are part of the Open Parliamentary Network held in May 2024 in Asunción under the motto Building Partnerships for Strengthening Democracy and Promoting Human Rights. In this space, we reiterated the importance of working with legislators in consolidating inclusive democracies that are transparent and resilient, able to respond to the current challenges responsibly and effectively. Similarly, the Congress of Guatemala was the host in October 2024 of the event Inclusive Citizens Participation, Seeking Opportunities for Transformation, and the initiative of full participation of women in politics in Guatemala. These were both organized by Parlamericas, and it's worth noting that legislators and representatives of their voters' interest were present in debates on issues of national importance, and we reiterate our commitment to democratic values and rational governance based on effective democracy, separation of powers, checks and balances, and sustainability. And we believe that through our work together, we will be able to successfully overcome the challenges that we face in our region and build a future of peace, equity, and prosperity for all men and women. Guatemala recognizes and values the role of Parlamericas in its efforts to promote parliamentary diplomacy in the inter-American system, and we urge you to support its efforts. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you very much, Guatemala. Grenada has the floor.
Thank you very much, Chair. ASG Mendes, Excellencies. It is indeed worthy and of good purpose that the Permanent Council should pursue today's important discussion on the promotion of inter-American parliamentary engagement, and we thank you, Chair, for including this on the agenda. Grenada, as a thriving democracy, has long upheld parliamentary democracy as an institutional reality, if not a necessity for internal peace and progress. Even in the late 1970s and 1980s, when the government came to office not through elections, but rather a populist socio-political revolution, Grenada ensured that our constitutional parliamentary structures remain intact. This reflects the resilience of our democratic values and governance in our country and indeed in our sub-region. I would like to extend special thank you to today's panelists, Ms. Blanca Ovelar, Senator of Paraguay, President of Parlamericas, and to Honorable Bridget Anisette George, Speaker of the House of Representatives of Trinidad and Tobago and Vice President of Parlamericas. Your leadership and dedication, Excellencies, to strengthening parliamentary engagement in our region and the hemisphere are invaluable, and we deeply appreciate your efforts. Additionally, I am pleased to acknowledge Grenada's two representatives in recent times to the Parlamericas process and to the upcoming Parlamericas parliamentary deliberations. Honorable Leo Cato, Speaker of the House of Representatives, and Senator the Honorable Decima Williams, President of the Senate, both in Grenada, will be attending the event in Washington, D.C. next week. Their participation underscores Grenada's commitment to furthering the dialogue and collaboration within the inter-American parliamentary community. Parlamericas, we confirm to ourselves and along with you, plays a vital role in reinforcing policy and governance frameworks throughout our region, promoting a good governance, helping to strengthen democratic processes, and advancing our shared interess. I also want to express sincere thanks and appreciation to the nations who assist us with this, in particular to Canada for their support to Grenada's continued integration in the inter-American parliamentary engagement. Your contributions are crucial in ensuring that parliaments play a central role in shaping the future of our nations. Grenada, Mr. Chair, remains committed to these important efforts, and we look forward to working alongside our regional partners to advance parliamentary engagement across the Americas. I thank you.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much. Once again, I'd like to thank the valuable presentation of the distinguished Pan-American authorities as well as the interventions of the delegations. Once again, I thank you. Your contributions have been fundamental to reaffirm the importance of interparliamentary dialogue as a platform for cooperation, allowing for the exchange of legislative experiences that contribute to inclusive development, hemispheric security, and the promotion and defense of human rights, as well as the principles of representative democracy in our region. There is no shadow of a doubt that for those of us who have been parliamentarians and have been at the head of those bodies, we understand the vital importance of those bodies for our democracy. Parliament is the first power of the state. It is the depository body of the sovereign will of the people and the legislative function, which is most important to qualify a state as truly democratic. Both the presidential systems as well as they are the majority of our systems, as well as the modern parliamentary systems, as well as in the rest of the world, have to be looked at, and that is the crucial importance of this item on the agenda today. This council has taken due note of all the speeches which will be included in the minutes of the session. In so doing, we have complied with the mandate of Resolution 3029 of the General Assembly, and the information will be presented at the 55th regular session of the General Assembly in accordance with provisions of Section 9 of the aforementioned resolution. Illustrious colleagues, moving on, we should now take on the topic democracy and the rule of law, exchange of technical assistance and best practices, included in today's meeting at the request of the permanent missions of Canada, Colombia, Ecuador, and Guatemala. This issue responds to the mandate of General Assembly Resolution 3004 with the intention of fostering dialogue and horizontal cooperation between member states with the support of the General Secretariat of the Organization of American States to exchange best practices and strengthen democracy and the rule of law in the region. At this opportunity, recent initiatives and examples of technical assistance in support of democracy will be presented, highlighting experiences of successful collaboration. Next, to begin, I should like to give the floor to the distinguished panelists of Canada. Canada has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Canada is honored to kick off this discussion on democracy and the importance of rule of law. We don't see it just as a precious value. It is the bedrock of stability and fraternity of justice for our citizens. Canada has engaged in the resilience of democracy by strengthening its institutions and the standards that allow democracy to address challenges. Within this spirit, we reaffirm our devotion to the OAS's principles and to continue to work in cooperation with all member states to shore up democracy and the primacy of law in the Americas. In English.
Forum for collective action without compromising sovereignty. Support offered by the OAS, whether electoral observation, legal assistance, or crisis mediation, is done with the consent and at the request of the state concerned. The Inter-American Democratic Charter underscores this by noting that member states, in the exercise of their sovereignty, may request OAS assistance to strengthen their democratic institutions. Canada welcomes this framework. It ensures that multilateral initiatives to aid democracy are cooperative and invited. When we invoke the collective defense of democracy, as we must when constitutional order or human rights are at stake, we do so in a manner that respects each other's nation's laws, traditions, and independent authority. Our strength lies in our unity of purpose, not uniformity of systems. No country in our hemisphere can take democratic governance for granted or defend it entirely alone. Transnational challenges, from organized corruption networks to sophisticated cyber threats, require a coordinated regional response. Canada believes that by working together through the OAS, we can amplify our ability to address these challenges. Cooperation between nations allows us to share best practices, learn from one another's experiences, and adapt proven frameworks to strengthen democracy and the rule of law. This kind of mutual support helps ensure that our democratic systems remain sustainable and resilient over time. Canada will continue to be a proactive partner with the OAS, championing the Inter-American Democratic Charter and its values in both word and deed. Through initiatives like Canada's Technical Assistance Program, TAP, we are investing in on-the-ground support for democratic institutions, from strengthening judicial systems to enhancing parliamentary governance, always in collaboration with the host country's authorities and to address their needs. These efforts alongside OAS programs help translate our shared principles into concrete actions that citizens can trust. Going forward, Canada pledges to remain constructive, attentive, and engaged in our multilateral work. By working together as sovereign nations bound by mutual respect, we can uphold democracy and rule of law for all of our citizens. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the missions of Guatemala, Ecuador, Colombia, and particularly their distinguished speakers here joining us today for sharing their experiences, as well, of course, as Canada's official Office for the Federal Judicial Affairs. Thank you, Chair.
Muchas gracias, Canadá. A continuación.
Thank you very much, Canada. Thank you. I'm very happy to greet and give the floor to Mr. Julio Flores, Executive Director of the National Commission Against Guatemala's Corruption, who will speak to us about the advances in the prevention of corruption in Guatemala. Mr. Director, welcome. You have the floor. Thank you very much. Assistant Secretary General, permanent representatives and delegates of the various member states, distinguished panelists, I would like to warmly greet you. I truly appreciate the opportunity to speak to you about a topic which is a priority for the government of Guatemala. From the very outset, Vice President Arevalo and Mr. Arias, they have engaged in the fight against corruption as an urgent, cross-cutting issue to strengthen institutions and to go back to essential services and comply and fulfill the rights of the people. Now, a little bit more than over a year with the work, we can talk about significant achievements when it comes to prevention of corruption. Precisely from this preventative cross-cutting standpoint, this is part of the strategy of the government to implement with all of the bodies that make up the executive branch. The willingness to fight corruption was crystallized from the very beginning of the National Commission Against Corruption. This body is responsible for accompanying the other institutions of the executive branch to implement suitable policies and prevention policies. From the Commission's standpoint, they drafted an ethics code where they established the principles that guide all the work of the public officials. And as a measure of implementation, the Probity Act was approved that looks at integrity and that acts against any suspicion of corruption. The state of Guatemala, in the first year of President Arevalo's term, they set up some offices of probity as a general policy. 67 of these bodies were approved, are up and running, and are constantly being strengthened. The 67 leaders of these institutions are part and parcel of integrity. This is a space for capacity building and dialogue for the officials that look at transparency and probity. These kinds of work is done with a view of training public officials with ongoing activities against corruption. To date, various activities have been given to public authorities that goes along with our Public Administration Institute. We have approved the Academy of Integrity and Probity, through which we have training for more than 40,000 public officials. And as such, we look at reporting and detection. And during this time of all the work, more than 240 denunciations or reports have come in against corruption. And this is accompanied by prevention measures. And let me say, it's important to say that this is the work of each and every authority, their oversight bodies, and their probity offices. These bodies have the function of implementing in their own institutions the systems that shore up integrity. These systems in keeping with the various features of leadership from the highest authorities and the publication of awareness-raising campaigns, the setting up of reporting channels, and the management of risks against corruption. A very important aspect that I should like to underscore is that we have initiatives that have been reported on, and these things have been institutionalized through a lot of the different actions taken by the President of the Republic. This underscores the firm conviction to fight against corruption at the highest levels of government. In addition to that, it has also been proposed for the very first time around an agenda against corruption from the seat of the President of the country. In 2024, presenting two bills, they seek to shore up the regulatory framework of the country in the fight against corruption. First, the initiative of a final beneficiary law, which aims to have the state be apprised of services that provide, of companies that provide services. We have a law for protecting whistleblowers and witnesses, the aim of which is to protect the life and the integrity as well as the work of those who courageously report on corruption. There are different challenges and different significant achievements, but one of the routes, which has been accompanied by all citizens, has been done through the delegate or a council of delegates represented by civil society, academia, indigenous peoples, and the private sector, which guides and leads different kinds of activities for the National Committee Against Corruption. This space, which hitherto was unknown, has made it necessary to zoom in on citizens' participation that guides the implementation and drafting of integrity policies. In 2025, this impetus continues now with the cooperation of other key stakeholders looking at the transparency of everything for everyone. This institutional or interinstitutional effort has been part of public oversight for developing communities throughout the entire country. And in this territorial movement, participation of all citizens will be very vital. People, through social oversight, can observe that resources earmarked are used for the benefit of the people. Before, the state hid information. Now, we make available all of the necessary data and information for social auditing to be done. We make sure that they're relevant and that they are taken into account. This path has been done with the international community through an exchange of experiences. We have got the necessary supports to implement all of the anti-corruption activities, and we have been able to report on the achievements through MESASIC of the OAS, and these favorable results, also supported by more than 100 international evaluations, confirm that there's still a lot of ground to cover, but we're moving on the right track. The index of corruption perception, after 9 years of institutional deterioration and negative evaluation, has been looked at. Now there's a positive qualification for the country, and also as a country, we have improved 8 different posts. The organization Freedom House also improved the Guatemala's evaluation, underscoring President Areva's leadership when it comes to the implementation of transparency. There's been a lot of success. This has improved Guatemala's perception, putting it on the positive side of the ledger and affirming, in addition to other things, the reforms spearheaded by the President of the Republic. And the fight against corruption has positively impacted the indicators which have been taken into account to improve investments for the country. So I would like to conclude and say that we truly appreciate the OAS following Guatemala's work. We're quite sure that through these preventive, across-the-board, long-term actions, with the international community accompanying us and the participation of all citizens, it is quite possible to build a dignified state which can serve the population. Thank you very much. We truly appreciate the Executive Director of the National Commission Against Guatemala's Corruption for his intervention. His speech has been fundamental in understanding the progress and challenges in the fight against corruption in Guatemala, as well as the measures implemented to strengthen transparency and accountability. Moving on then, I'm pleased to greet and give the floor to Mr. Oleg Shakov, Director of International Programs of the Office of the Commissioner for Federal Judicial Affairs of Canada, who will talk to us about the Canada Technical Assistance Program called TAP, given the acronym in English. Be welcome, sir. You have the floor.
Excellencies, distinguished delegates, good morning. I would like to start by thanking the Canadian diplomatic mission to OAS for facilitating this opportunity to address you today. My name is Oleg Shakov. I'm Director of International Programs at the Office of the Commissioner for Federal Judicial Affairs, commonly referred to as FJA. FJA is a small federal government department in Ottawa that plays a very crucial role in safeguarding the independence of Canada's judiciary by providing comprehensive administrative support to approximately 1,200 federally appointed judges across superior courts and courts of appeal nationwide. FJA is also deeply committed to judicial cooperation. Having collaborated globally for nearly 3 decades to foster justice systems that are effective, accessible, impartial, and of course transparent. Today I'm here to briefly tell you about the Technical Assistance Partnership, or TAP, a program under the auspices of Global Affairs Canada. TAP is designed to facilitate the sharing of specialized expertise from the Canadian public sector with institutions in ODA-eligible countries seeking to enhance their capacities. And today, the TAP program has engaged several Canadian government departments, which in addition to my department, FGA, also includes the Department of Justice Canada, Natural Resources Canada. I understand that discussions are also ongoing currently between GAC and Elections Canada, as well as with Indigenous and Northern Affairs Canada, to get onboarded. My focus today will specifically address how FJA contributes to judicial assistance internationally through TAP. The primary goal of TAP FJA is to strengthen the integrity and effectiveness of judicial systems in the beneficiary countries and to equip them with tools and practices that can boost public trust and confidence in the administration of justice in those countries. So under TAP, we do not provide financial assistance. Instead, we offer targeted technical assistance delivered primarily by senior Canadian judges or core personnel with extensive expertise in the relevant areas of support. And these are short-term, quick impact initiatives, usually spanning 12 months, and focusing on practical improvements in areas like access to justice, judicial ethics, judicial accountability, judicial communications, case management, strategies to combat issues like gender-based violence, and many, many more. It's important to remember that each initiative is uniquely tailored to collaborative efforts with the recipient country to address their specific needs adequately. And these initiatives involve such activities as technical missions, deployment of experts, webinars, roundtables, conferences, training, etc., etc. So under TAP FGA, our work has spanned Latin America, Africa, Asia, and Eastern Europe, all enhancing crucial aspects of justice systems. Our approach remains apolitical, emphasizing professional exchanges rather than any direct intervention in judicial processes. For instance, in Colombia, we collaborated with the Judicial Gender Commission and local courts to address gender-based violence more effectively. In Ecuador, where we're currently active, we're working with the National Court of Justice to robustly integrate indigenous justice into their formal legal framework. And these efforts are tangible examples of the shared commitment between Canadian and partner country judges to evolve justice administration successfully. In our view, TAP FGA closely aligns with the priorities of your organization, Organization of American States. Your member states value strong public institutions, human rights, respect, and equitable justice access. So by providing Canadian expertise in judicial organization, court administration, legal reform, we help strengthen transparent and trustworthy mechanisms for dispute resolution and the protection of human rights. Our team works very closely with your local organizations, judicial organizations, to ensure that all the activities are culturally appropriate, relevant, and sustainable in the longer term. So, for those of you interested in exploring potential collaboration with that, it begins by indicating your interest to the Canadian diplomatic mission in your country. And then this concept is further refined in discussion with the Canadian partner institution, such as my department, to make sure that the requested expertise is available in Canada. Then the proposal for your country initiative is compiled and submitted by the Canadian Embassy to TAP HQ in Ottawa, that's in Global Affairs Canada headquarters. All country submissions are competitive, as we can only onboard limited initiatives per year. For example, my department can onboard up to 3 country initiatives per year. So if we have more than 3, we have to decide which 3 we're going to be going forward with. So once approved, our experts work with the partner countries' relevant institutions to finalize a short-term targeted work plan. So, and unlike multi-year projects with heavy administrative overhead, each top country initiative must remain sharply focused on clearly identified objectives because it's implemented within a modest 1-year budget. And this lean structure emphasizes practical outcomes, ensuring efficient knowledge exchange while fully respecting, and I want to emphasize that, national sovereignty. At this point, I'm very much looking forward to hearing from our current and former partners under TAP-FGA. I understand that the Honorable Jose Dionisio Swing-Nagua, Chief Justice of the National Court of Justice of Ecuador, and the Honorable Maestada Hilde Gonzalez-Neyre, Justice of the Supreme Court of Colombia, will be speaking next, and they, I understand, plan to share their experiences working with TAP-FGA, and I'm sure that their insights will provide a direct view of how Canadian judicial technical assistance can be adapted to local context. With this, I thank you for your attention, and I look forward to any follow-up questions that may originate from you after these presentations. Muchas gracias, muy obrigada, y merci beaucoup.
Agradecemos al director de programas.
Thank you very much for your position on technical assistance in Canada, and your efforts at promoting cooperation and exchange of best practices are key to strengthening the rule of law in the region. Now we will hear the assessment from the TAP program. To that end, I'm delighted to give the floor, first of all, to the President of the National Court of Justice of Ecuador, Dr. Jose Dionisio Swing-Nagua. Mr. President, it's a true honor to be with you today, and I give you the floor.
Muy buenos.
Good morning to everyone present. Special greetings to Ambassador Arce, Chair of the Permanent Council of the OAS. Thank you and good morning to Luis Almagro, the Secretary General of the OAS. To me, it's a true honor to speak to such a distinguished audience, to express some ideas on our experience in carrying out the technical assistance program from Canada TAP and its specific ideas were just described by Oleg Shakov, the Commissioner for Legal Affairs in Canada. So some preliminary issues. Our Constitution dates from 2008, and it defines Ecuador as a plurinational intercultural state. This means that we recognize historically marginalized group in Ecuador, such as indigenous and Afro-descendant communities, and they have an important presence in our constitution. And this paradigm shift is one of the important advancements made in the region with regard to protecting and recognizing fundamental rights. And that is the same constitution that recognizes indigenous justice as a valuable mechanism for conflict resolution within plurinational communities, pursuant to standards from each nationality and community. That is recognition of their own laws in indigenous communities. Along these lines, indigenous justice has important ancestral practices for social groups that wish to preserve their traditions, resisting the implementation of regular justice based on a conduct that defines what a crime is in each community, identifying the principles, customs, and wisdom of each community. Thus, the Ecuadorian Constitution recognizes jurisdictional functions granted to indigenous communities, nationalities, and communes and their leadership, recognizing their jurisdiction for resolving community conflicts within their communities, seeking to provide reparations for any harm and build harmony between human beings and nature. Now, indigenous justice as well as regular justice focus on strict respect for human rights recognized by the Constitution and international instruments. Similarly, we also focus on the rule of law. And that is why we look at the decisions adopted by authorities from indigenous communities as something that must be respected by all public authorities and entities. And with this background, the Constitution of Ecuador recognizes indigenous justice and its own mechanisms for operations, cultural codes, challenges, world vision, and tools based on oral traditions and conflict resolution traditions, respecting the diversity of our indigenous communities. As already explained, we can recognize that we are a legally plural country in Ecuador, and we allow indigenous communities to exercise their inherent rights as broadly as possible in harmony between nature and human beings. And this is where we see the root of this importance of legal plurality and indigenous cultures, as well as its operability in academia and law. We have been looking at regulations and order in order to resolve conflicts and ensure correct application of state interest. Despite the fact that indigenous justice in the framework of our judiciary is part of our constitution, in practice there is sometimes no authority that governs this, and conflicts are resolved in ordinary justice. And since there is no clarity, we often see challenges to full recognition of indigenous justice. We can say that this is a problem that lies in the lack of recognition and dialogue between these instances of justices, which of course is indispensable if we are going to cover these gaps. The Court of Justice, which is the highest level authority, seeks to bring together universities, civil society, and various institutions that work in the legal realm and other state entities and international cooperation in a proactive space that is enriching, with the aim of seeking reflection on the practice and standards of indigenous justice in Ecuador. Against this backdrop, the Court of Justice is pleased with the TAP program provided through the Commissioner for Federal Legal Affairs in Canada, and this is a space for full execution of that program. As already stated, this is a program for providing transfer of knowledge on Indigenous justice through the National Court of Justice to representatives of the office, and it allows them to have a general view of the legal framework in our country and regulation on this issue. And in November of last year, a delegation had the opportunity to visit Canada and take part in a symposium on the Indigenous justice system. They held working meetings related to inherent law and Indigenous law through the BC Indigenous Justice Center, and in Ecuador, we were able to understand the Canadian regulatory framework in these affairs and compare it to our own. A Canadian delegation also visited Ecuador between the 5th and 14th of this month. The delegation was led by the Honorable Patrick Abutes from BC, Catherine Belander from Ontario, Eric Humphreys, Vice Commissioner for Police Affairs in Canada, and Natalia Odoreske, a senior analyst from the same organization. Along with the court, the delegation carried out various activities, and this allowed us to focus on various scenarios and components, and we had horizontal dialogue with the Andean University, which allowed us to address issues related to legal diversity and plurality and Indigenous justice, with important presentations from academia and various Indigenous communities, as well as police forces, and we achieved our goal of sharing experiences on Indigenous justice with legal authorities from both countries. There was a meeting with the council from the administrative body of the police to also obtain first-hand knowledge on interventions provided from this administrative body with regard to seeking mechanisms for raising awareness on Indigenous justice practices. And we also had a meeting with the Constitutional Court where we had an opportunity to speak with constitutional judges and learn firsthand about the role and vision that the Constitutional Court has on Indigenous justice. We understand that they are a mechanism for constitutional supervision with regard to the decisions of Indigenous institutions. And in both Canada and Canada, we have been able to share experiences and knowledge between various sectors that are linked to Indigenous justice, from international experts, institutional delegates, representatives from civil society, Indigenous communities, and academia. We have been able to identify the problems faced by Indigenous justice in Ecuador through various topics related to this, and the need to raise awareness on the issue in the legal community, as well as the pressing need to find dialogue spaces to build real, true national reconciliation. And this is the roadmap that we would like to follow as we implement this technical assistance program with the Federal Legal Affairs Council in Canada. We have been able to progress today with the idea that we will be able to continue along these same lines of horizontal dialogue and cooperation, which will shed light on these new critical issues in our country. So thank you very much to the authority of the OAS for facilitating my intervention today. Thank you very much.
Agradecemos al distinguido presidente.
Thank you very much to the President of the National Court of Justice of Ecuador, José Dionisio Swing Nagua, for his valuable intervention. His assessment of the TAC program underscores the importance of international legal cooperation and its fundamental role in ongoing improvement of our legal systems and promoting justice in Ecuador. To conclude, dear colleagues, I am delighted to greet and give the floor to Magistrate Hilda Gonzalez Neira, who is a judge from the Supreme Court of Colombia, to hear her assessment of the TAP program. Magistrate Gonzalez Neira, it is a pleasure to be with you today, and I give you the floor. Thank you to the other members of the Permanent Council, and thank you to those who are attending the PC today. And I'd like to share my country's experience, as well as mine at the head of the Gender Commission in this technical assistance program from Canada. I will share some brief background in Colombia. We have various institutions, but in the middle of all of that, we have constitutional commissions, which we have the National Gender Commission. And this is a commission that is made up by all members, so one member from each court. And as part of that commission, therefore, I would like to note that we have been looking at the equality and non-discrimination policy with a gender approach. Can you hear me? Yes, we can hear you perfectly, Your Honor. So our equality and non-discrimination policy is not something that is just empty words on a page. We need real help in translating this into concrete actions, and so we turned to the Canadian government. We presented a project which fortunately they accepted and agreed to work hand in hand with us in the office for the Federal Office on Judicial Affairs in Canada. And so we held a visit of high-level authorities traveling to Vancouver, Canada, where we visited the judiciary to see how they work there. And the commissioner visits were made up of people from various levels, court justices and judges, as well as representatives of ordinary justice. And we had a member from the National Commission on Indigenous Women, and that was organized by the National Commission on Women. And from that, in the long term, we decided to create a strategic framework to address gender-related legal issues. And in the framework of the short term, we met with the National Gender Commission, and we met with the coordinating body with authority and the Gender Regulation Authority for the entire country. And so during the visit, we were able to consolidate the commitment of both governments, or both groups at least, to work for 5 years to carry out several projects, including strengthening awareness of the National Commission on Gender. But this is to make it a truly binding body to work on gender policies, training in gender, in issues related to courts, as well as coordination between the justice system and Indigenous justice, institutional strengthening, improving education as tools and procedures, mechanisms for raising awareness, and others, and certainly working with the judiciary in general. After that, we held a visit for commissioners from Canada in Colombia. Members of the commission included judges and administrative staff. And during the visit, we were able to consolidate decisions made during the prior visit. And from that, we came up with a final document with 6 recommendations and points of strategic action with the idea of strengthening the equality and non-discrimination policy, as well as the gender approach. That includes these 6 recommendations and points of strategic action: ethic and legal behavior, public trust, specialized courts, communication with the public, raising awareness, empowering judicial staff, and judicial training as a specific type of capacity building. And so these recommendations led us to work on various webinars, including raising awareness in the social context, the indigenous justice system, and judicial ethics, and with also the intervention of civil servants for judges and magistrates from the judiciary of each country. Once we concluded this, we continued to work on the main contributions from the Commissioner's office, and they are condensed in the document that I just mentioned. But I do want to underscore that one of the issues that we have been working on is that of specialized courts. And this is where our council has established a plan of action and practices, as well as special courts with a specific focus on what we call domestic violence and gender justice. This was a trial that we carried out with some of the courts in our system, and we realized that we need to improve some areas as time goes on, and that is we are right now. But we have presented various projects for the establishment in Colombia by law, these specialized courts focused. This has been guided by the Commission and the office that has been leading our efforts in this area. Also, we have been working to address the matter of public trust, and the Commission has been concerned because in the past, when we have worked to shed light on what we do in the court, this is an issue that has come up time and again, and we have a project to address it where we are working right now. And I would like to thank the TAP program from Canada, the Canadian government, and everyone who took part in this activity. And thank you to the Permanent Council of the OAS for allowing us to share our experience. It was very fruitful as we work to promote a policy of change in gender justice. And this is not something that is simply empty words on a page. It is something that we are living and breathing. Thank you very much. Thank you to Judge Gonzalez Neira for her very enriching contribution, and this underscores the role of the TAP program and how it has strengthened the Colombian judiciary and improved its efficiency and transparency in the administration of justice. Dear colleagues, I'll now give the floor to the delegations that would like to speak to this item on the order of business. Ecuador is recognized.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you very much, Chair. This mission appreciates convening today's session of the Permanent Council to address this topic that is irrefutably important and very current for our cases as we look at cross-cutting collaboration in the region. Thank you very much for the meaningful presentations we saw this morning, and we'd like to take this opportunity to salute the distinguished panelists from Canada, Colombia, Guatemala, and particularly Jose Swing, the President of the National Court of Justice of Ecuador. It is valuable for us to look at the context through concrete examples that Cooperation between member states of the organization is possible to fulfill the mandate of strengthening democracy in our region and fomenting the work conducted by the voluntary group with the aim of holding dialogue on this fundamental pillar of the OAS. It is also an effective show of the best practices and seeking ways to strengthen and give life in our societies to the OAS Charter and the Inter-American Democratic Charter. Today, we have focused on important topics such as preventing corruption and best use of some judiciary systems, with the reference in the specific case of Ecuador of the complex and sensitive administration of indigenous justice and customary practices in our ancestral communities. With regard to the latter, my delegation would like to take this opportunity to thank Canada for the technical assistance we have received, and this has certainly been a great benefit for the National Court of Justice in Ecuador, as well as other users of the justice system in our country. As noted by Dr. Swing, the objective of the project led by the National Court of Justice in Ecuador as the representative of the judiciary seeks to link Canadian cooperation to collectives, social organizations, universities, and other institutions that make up the judiciary and other state entities and create a proactive, enriching space with the aim of seeking to improve our regulations and practice in the implementation of indigenous justice in Ecuador. The visits described by the President of the National Court of Justice have allowed us to share experiences and knowledge between various stakeholders related to indigenous justice. It means that we've had diverse, plural interaction between experts from Canada and delegates from the corresponding institutions in my country, representatives of civil society organizations, and academia. As you already heard, Chair, we have seen active participation from the Andean University, where you yourself are a lecturer. As noted by Dr. Swing, it has been possible for us to identify critical challenges and problems faced by indigenous justice in Ecuador, and thus we have been able to address many facets of the issue, the value of interdisciplinary dialogue and inclusive dialogue, as well as cultural assessment of the topic by the legal community and relevant stakeholders. Thus, as we have seen this morning, this cooperation has allowed us to learn from other legal systems, including different legal traditions, such as that of Canada. And we've been able to leverage best practices to implement more efficient, equitable, and transparent policies with the aim of improving the rule of law and democracy, as well as the administration of justice in our countries. Without a doubt, this is a tangible contribution of the tools and mechanisms provided by the Inter-American system to member states for horizontal cooperation. And in this case, it was led by Canada, as well as strengthening peaceful coexistence, efficient conflict resolution, and legal responses attached to equity and justice while preserving and respecting the values, principles, and traditions of pluricultural, pluriethnic societies which characterize so many of the countries represented at the OAS. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias, embajador de...
Thank you to Ecuador. Colombia is recognized. Thank you, Chair. And thank you very much for including this item on the order of business. As we already heard, it was led by Ecuador, Canada, Guatemala, and Colombia. I'd like to start by giving special thanks to Hilda Gonzalez Neira for her presentation. And I know her personally, and I know her incredible work within the judiciary. And thank you for participating in today's meeting. I also thank you very much to the other presenters, Julio Flores, Alex Shakov, and Jose Dionisio Swing Nagua. In Colombia, the political constitution establishes in Article 230 the independence of the judiciary, and it states that judges are subject to the rule of law. That is all. And this is strengthened by Article 116, which talks about the separation of powers and checks and balances between other public powers in the judiciary. And despite the advancements that have been made in best practices, the system still faces challenges such as corruption, political influence, contempt of court decisions, and this is very important for us to address, as we have stated many times here, because judicial independence requires us to continually strengthen the judiciary as an indispensable pillar of the rule of law. And in Colombia, we have seen an increase of female participation in the judiciary. Women's presence in high-level courts, however, as already heard here many times, in the court as well as the State Council, continues to be limited. This reflects a persistent gap in access to decision-making spaces by women, even today, as we already heard from Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum. Fanny Gonzalez Franco was the first woman named as a Supreme Court justice, and she shined as an exemplary justice, an expert in the law. She broke a glass ceiling and opened a path never seen before by women, and today she continues to inspire us to aspire to equality. And she created order in the Palace of Justice, and this was despite the narratives to the contrary. And she issued many court decisions, but she was then assassinated by the Colombian army at the Palace of Justice, no less. And we have established the basic principles of the UN when it comes to non-interference in judiciary processes and fair justice. And Colombia's experience with the creation and operations of the Network for Peace, established as part of the peace agreements in 2016 with the FARC, has been studied and shared with countries that also face internal conflicts or seek mechanisms to address widespread human rights violations. Colombia has taken part in many different international fora to share its lessons learned on how to balance judiciary autonomy with accountability in contexts of post-conflict. And we have met with judges, training, and experts, where we have supported initiatives in countries where they have been implementing reforms to improve transparency and autonomy in the judiciary. These collaborations include workshops and training, as we already heard from Judge Neira, such as the constitutional provision in Colombia that preserves debate and how to empower citizens in the face of potential oversteps by civil servants, by action or omission, or by individuals in public functions. We've been working with associations such as Lawyers Without Borders from Canada and the National Commission on Gender in the Judiciary to strengthen investigations and prosecution of crimes such as trafficking in persons, which is so dear to all of us, seeking to reduce impunity in cases that affect mainly women, girls, vulnerable communities, promoting a gender approach to human rights within the judiciary. Thank you. Canada. The Colombian government, led by President Gustavo Petro, invites you to continue political dialogue among all member states and to continue to promoting horizontal cooperation and exchange of best practices to strengthen democratic institutions and the rule of law in the Americas. We should not go back to the era where courts were frequently trampled on and intercepted secretly by governments of that era. We should not head back to that era. We need to ensure that violent interference from the executive is not a reality in the judiciary. Thank you very much.
Muchísimas gracias a usted.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. Delegation of Brazil. Ambassador. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I truly appreciate the delegations from Canada, Guatemala, and Colombia for putting this item on the agenda. We're very grateful for their presentations this morning. The discussions on the topic here in the OAS and in other fora have told us that there's not just one model of democracy, but within the framework of our diversity, we share commitments, respect for fundamental freedoms, strengthening of the rule of law, and the promotion of social justice. Our standpoint is based on the fundamental belief that all states in our region have something to learn and to teach in the continuous process of improving democracy. At the center of this debate is the interdependence of everything and democracy. This is a concept which is often forgotten, as we have it in Chapter 3 of the Inter-American Democratic Charter. Democracy cannot just be a host of different abstract principles. It needs to be translated into concrete improvements for citizens, and that's why Brazil has defended public policies that promote social inclusion, the fight against inequalities, and strengthening of democratic governance. We are proud of the launch last November of the Global Alliance Against Hunger and Poverty because we truly believe that only guaranteeing that everybody has access to opportunities to fundamental rights can we build societies that are truly democratic and stable. Democracy is now grappling with contemporary challenges which need special attention. And amongst them, I should like to point out the issue of integrity, information, and the fight against disinformation. Freedom of expression is a fundamental tenet of democracy. It has to be guaranteed to allow for freedom of opinion and criticism, but it cannot be confused with freedom to disseminate hate and racism and violence and commit crimes against democracy, public health, public economy, rights and integrity of women and children. Although this time Brazil has a clear-cut position when it comes to this issue, advocating for international cooperation as a crucial instrument to deal with disinformation and hate speech in digital arenas. We have also defended the need to have greater responsibility and partnerships for digital platforms and the private sector to moderate harmful content, algorithm transparency, and the protection of human data. Brazil has also been an active voice in the fight against corruption, aware that integrity and transparency are fundamental pillars for credibility of institutions and to strengthen democracy. Last week, here in Washington, we had the 43rd meeting of experts of the MESIC meeting. At this meeting, they approved Brazil's annual report, which followed 9 recommendations from the previous round on the country and recognized significant achievements made when it came to implementing other anti-corruption mechanisms. Brazil reaffirms its conviction that democracy and transparency work hand in hand. No democracy will be full if we don't have full, dignified conditions for life for its population. No state can guarantee stability if it allows that disinformation gnaws at its institutions. There cannot be any trust from citizens without any commitment to the fight against corruption. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Brazil. Bolivia has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. We truly appreciate Canada, Ecuador, Colombia for including this topic on the agenda. We also appreciate the presentations made by the panelists. We appreciate that this panel has the aim to underscore some recent experiences for cooperation among states through technical assistance to support the rule of law and democracy. Democracy is a system of government that is institutionalized based on participation of people in the exercise of public power through intercommunication and ongoing dialogue between the governed and the governors via the rule of law. This relationship is the Constitution and where law prevails. Both are essential elements of the Republican state. To share experiences and to have effective cooperation among states is undoubtedly critical role and the benchmark for democracy. Mutual cooperation amongst people, among states, is a high priority for Bolivia, respecting sovereignty and self-determination of all peoples. This is crucial for us. The founding charter of the OAS has amongst its objectives to have peace and justice prevail, to promote solidarity, enhance cooperation, and defend sovereignty and independence. And it establishes amongst our essential purposes and objectives to promote and consolidate representative democracy based on the respect of non-intervention, as well as prevention of any possible causes for problems, ensuring peaceful settlement of controversies that arise amongst member states. In this regard, then, we truly appreciate the experiences shared that leave us a lot of learning to be taken into account. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Bolivia. Costa Rica has the floor. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. We truly appreciate the permanent missions of Canada, Colombia, Ecuador, and Guatemala for asking to put this item on the agenda of this permanent council. Likewise, we thank the panelists for their good practices and for the efforts that have been spoken about today. In this regard, then, we reaffirm our firm commitment with the achievements that bring us together as a national community, democracy, rule of law, development. Our history of democracy has taught us that these principles are essential to guarantee fair, inclusive, and sustainable societies. Exchange of good practices strengthen our institutions and imbue trust in citizens for a democratic system. In this regard, then, to have good practices and to strengthen our systems and a democratic system in our countries, Costa Rica actively promotes an exchange of knowledge in the electoral arena, sharing experiences for elections in the organization of transparent elections and the implementation of other mechanisms that ensure integrity and credibility of institutions is important to us. Through technical assistance and elections that are supported by states for their electoral systems, the use of technology for elections and electoral observers contribute to strengthening democracy in the region. And as such, then, our delegation actively participates in voluntary groups to follow up on the Democratic Charter, the Inter-American Democratic Charter. This is a fundamental place for the principles that are enshrined in this instrument. This becomes a key platform for an exchange of experiences and best practices that contribute to consolidation of democracy in the region. So within that framework, then, we reiterate our commitment to continue to have an exchange of technical assistance. Only through respect and trust can we guarantee more prosperous democratic societies that effectively meet the needs of their citizens. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Costa Rica. The Dominican Republic has the floor. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. My delegation truly appreciates the delegations that have promoted putting this important topic on the agenda at today's meeting, and we are grateful to the panelists for their comments. We would like to underscore and truly say that we appreciate technical cooperation offered by Canada in the framework of democracy and rule of law. Mr. Chairman, the government of the Dominican Republic has a resolute commitment to the quest for transparency, efficiency, accountability, and the fight against corruption. And for all of this, our authorities tirelessly work to establish public policies which are designed with a human approach, observing commitments and regional guidelines that are also international when it comes to access to information, open data, and digital governments. Of these policies, let me underscore the plan of the open government, which has 10 different commitments that broach social challenges in different areas, aiming to have better government performance, promoting civic participation, and increase the availability of information to apply the highest standards of integrity, professionalism in public administration, and facilitate access to new technology for accountability. In March 2022, we adopted the first national policy for open data, which had the technical support of the Department of Public Effective Management of the OAS. And at the same time, the National Committee for Open Data and the National Plan for Opening Up Data were established. With this citizens approach, we created the necessary committees, Integrity and Government Compliance, Unit of Internal Prevention Against Corruption, which currently works with 195 parts of public administration. We are moving ahead with a registry, or we are putting together a national plan, an anti-corruption plan, and we got underway the sole registry system for territorial areas in the hands of citizens. We continue with the commitments that emerged from the resolution on strengthening democracy, the general direction of governmental integrity alongside the OAS and the data charter that worked to implement the PIDA in the Dominican Republic, promoting, in addition to other things, the use and the citizens' empowerment to prevent and to fight against corruption. The achievements of PIDA in the Dominican Republic were presented on the 5th of December last year within the framework of Open America Connections Without Borders 2024, with a reference and good practices for the entire region. More recently, the Committee of Experts of Messisi approved the Dominican Republic report in the fight against corruption, which represented a very important hallmark for the country that annually reports to that body and the progress we make. So finally, Mr. Chairman, I would like to underscore that the Dominican Republic was re-elected by acclamation to the presidency of Messisi. We will hold the chairmanship 2025-2026, and in February last year, our country was also elected to the chairmanship of the Governmental Procurement Network. This recognition represents an opportunity to continue to spearhead the changes that citizens are more demanding of when it comes to strengthening democracy, transparency, accountability, and improvements in the quality of life of our citizens is what we're talking about. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ambassador. The delegation of Grenada has the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, ASG Mendez, Excellencies. My delegation commends the inclusion of democracy and the rule of law, sharing of technical assistance and best practices on today's agenda. Addressing corruption and lawlessness is vital to the prosperity of our nations and the well-being of our future generations. Grenada is committed to fostering transparency and accountability in public life. In 2015, we enacted the Fiscal Responsibility Act, establishing a framework for fiscal prudence and sustainable public finances. The Act guides our fiscal policy, aiming to ensure that government finances are sustainable over the short, medium, and long term, consistent with a sustainable level of debt as a priority. To strengthen this framework, the Fiscal Responsibility Oversight Committee was established to monitor compliance with that act. That committee's 2022 annual report highlights our commitment to fiscal transparency and accountability, noting that the Act provides guidelines for fiscal and debt sustainability and for fiscal transparency. In 2023, Grenada introduced the Fiscal Resilience Act, aiming to simplify and fortify our rules-based fiscal framework. This act received commendations from international financial institutions, including the International Monetary Fund, for its role in enhancing fiscal transparency and accountability. Grenada also upholds strict regulations regarding gifts and public life. The Public Life Act mandates that public officials declare any gifts received, promoting transparency and thereby deterring potential conflicts of interest. For instance, in December of 2022, the chairman of the Grenada Citizens by Investment Programs Committee returned a quote-unquote Christmas gift that violated our ethical standards, stating that its value was, I quote, incongruent with the Grenada Citizenship by Investment Code of Business Conduct and Ethics Policy, unquote. These measures, Mr. Chair, reflect Grenada's dedication to combating corruption and promoting good governance in public life. We also acknowledge the valuable support provided by Canada's Technical Assistance Program, TAP, that is under review in this session, in enhancing governance and institutional capacity in Grenada. Through initiatives like the Canada CARICOM Expert Development Mechanism, Grenada has benefited from technical assistance aimed at diversifying and strengthening our economy, building climate-resilient communities, and reducing gender and economic inequalities. This collaboration has bolstered our public institutions' ability to deliver inclusive services and implement effective policies. Regarding the rule of law, Mr. Chair, and judicial independence, Grenada's constitution guarantees an independent judiciary, and courts have demonstrated their autonomy in recent years. There is no tangible evidence of political interference in the judiciary there. However, challenges persist, including concerns about the judiciary's resourcing, which impacts its efficacy. Administrative and judicial procedures related to labor, for example, are subject to lengthy delays and appeals, affecting timely access to justice. Additionally, in 2018, Grenada held a referendum on replacing the British Judicial Committee of the Privy Council with the Caribbean Court of Justice as the final court of appeal. This proposal was rejected by voters in that referendum, reflecting probably concerns about judicial independence and potential of political interference in the proposed court. It may be correct, it may not be, but that was the result of the referendum. Grenada remains committed to strengthening the rule of law and ensuring judicial independence. We salute the efforts of the countries here in your commentaries today and your contributions like Guatemala, Ecuador, Colombia, which are taking significant steps, Bolivia, to uphold the rule of law and integrity within public sectors. By sharing technical assistance and best practices, we can collectively advance our commitment to democracy and the rule of law. Again, thank you for this agenda item and for the invaluable presentations. Thank you.
Muchas gracias, Grenada.
Thank you very much, Grenada. We thank our panelists for their very valuable interventions and for sharing their valuable experiences with us. Likewise, we thank the delegations for their contributions and for their active participation in this very relevant issue. This Permanent Council has taken due note of all the interventions, which will be duly reflected in the minutes of the session. In this way, then, we comply with the mandate established in Resolution 3004 of the General Assembly, reaffirming our strong commitment to continue strengthening dialogue and cooperation between member states with the aim of continuing to promote respect for democracy and the rule of law in our region. As was pointed out by the Ambassador of Ecuador, the joint work with academia often reflects a glimmer of light for the judicial arena, and also, as mentioned by the Ambassador of Colombia, the rulings over and above the criteria that we might bear in mind are characteristic in the way they are implemented. There is nothing that passes the government without their rulings being abided by. And when rulings are not abided by, that is really very important when it comes to this topic. Dear colleagues, then, in moving on at the request of the Secretary General, through its note distributors document CP/INF 10496/25, I am pleased to greet and welcome again to this Permanent Council Ambassador Agustin Espinosa, Special Representative of the Secretary General for the Affairs of Belize and Guatemala, to share with us the activities and the achievements of the OAS office in the Belize-Guatemala adjacency zone during 2024. Before giving the floor to the distinguished Ambassador Espinosa, I would also like to welcome back to the Permanent Council Her Excellency Malia May, Vice Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade of Belize, as well as His Excellency Carlos Ramiro Martinez Alvarado, Minister of Foreign Relations of the Republic of Guatemala, who are with us today at this session virtually. Distinguished Vice Ministers and Ministers, it's an honor to have your presence here at today's session. Without further ado, then, I'd like to give the floor to Ambassador Espinosa, who will present virtually at this meeting. Ambassador Espinosa, you have the floor. Thank you very much, Secretary General, Assistant Secretary General, illustrious permanent representatives, observers, ladies and gentlemen. I'm honored to address this Permanent Council today as Special Representative of the Secretary General for Affairs of Belize and Guatemala to share with you the report on the activities and achievements of the OAS in the adjacency zone during 2024. This cycle, as you know, begins because both countries asked the Secretary General for assistance to strike an agreement to resolve the territorial, maritime, and insular conflict. At the request, or in the light of this request, Belize and Guatemala signed the first measure for CSBMs, and they decided to respect the adjacency line between both countries and the adjacency zone, which extends 1 kilometer to the east and another to the west, based on this imaginary line of approximately 216 kilometers in length, north to south, with an area of more than 400 square kilometers and with a population of approximately 40,000 people located in a little bit more than 35 communities. In 2008, as a result of not having got an agreement through diplomacy, the Secretary recommended to both countries to go into the legal system and international law, which establishes things to resolve or settlements. This was adopted by both countries and ended up in having popular consultations, which were held in 2016 and 19. And thus far, the territorial conflict, the maritime insular conflict, is in the hands of the International Court of Justice jurisdiction. Over the last year, we have zoomed in on 4 major tenets: investigation of incidents as its own implementation of social development projects with a special focus on empowering women, coordination when it comes to security with the armies of Belize and Guatemala, and strengthening the political and diplomatic mediation channels. With regards to the first pillar, we have continued our work of verification of incidents in the agency area, and from the very beginning of our work in September 2002 to December 2024, the mission received 530 requests for verification, of which 334 for Belize and 133 for Guatemala. During 2024, we received 46 new requests for verification related to the construction of structures and the opening up of new areas for crop growing. There were 20 verification missions over the course of the year, ensuring detailed follow-up, timely follow-up for the incidents. And we had 24 reports in Spanish and English complying with the principles of impartiality, neutrality, and independence, which guided the missions of peace of the OAS. And for the very first time, our mission looked at training in the use of technological tools for geopositioning for the armies of both countries, having 6 information sessions when it came to the use of GSP in compliance with the framework for the using this technology. With regard to the second tenet, since 2021, and in keeping with the renewed vision of our culture program for peace, we have worked to spearhead economic and social development in the adjacency zone. This transformation has allowed us to strengthen our work in the communities with a special view to empowering women. This is going to be completed in our capacity building areas and promotion for peace, which are called Tomai. The first is in Veinte Viejo in Belize, the second is in Cincuenta, and then the third is along the same line of adjacency. After tireless efforts of our office and thanks to the invaluable cooperation of the Italian government in February 2024, we opened up the 4th center in the community of Santa Cruz in Guatemala, one of the most remote, far-fetched areas and with the greatest tension and sensitivity in the adjacency zone. This last achievement is one of the most outstanding milestones when it comes to social development, spearheaded by our very own mission. Our centers have offered technical training, which is free. It's certified in different areas such as sewing, electricity, repairing bicycles, English, Spanish, activities in tourism, graphic design, nursing, and building new businesses. A very special part, Mr. Chairman, is that we opened up a community vegetable growing area and a bakery in one of the most vulnerable areas. The community participated. Here we're looking at providing foodstuffs and improving the quality of life for children and young people. During 2024, our centers benefited from 817 people who participated, of which 76 were women. Many of us, for the very first time, had access to formal education. The success of this program, Mr. Chairman, would not have been possible without the support of the different educational institutions, the official institutions of both countries. The accreditation generates credibility and trust in the community. And as such, we'd like to thank the government of Spain as well, for the very important contribution, which allowed us to continue with our communication program. Thanks for the support. We have got approval to set up a radio station called La Zona. This is a non-profit which will democratize information, which will make it easier to have cultural exchange between Belize and Guatemala. Now, with regard to the third tenet in 2024, our mission had close contact with the armed forces of both countries, and these actions are translated into an exercise of monthly cooperation with the commanders of the forces that patrol the adjacency area and with the high command areas or people who carry out joint operations to guarantee and shore up security in the region. In 2024, we had 10 different meetings, 4 every quarter, high level, 6 every 6 months with people from the battalion for the coordination of different activities and the possibility to report on different activities. In close cooperation with the armed forces of both countries, we have been able to contain risk situations, to prevent acts of violence, and to avoid any kind of conflict that upsets the order of peace in the region between both countries. Mr. Chairman, with regards to the last pillar of our mission, in accordance with 2005, the Secretary General of the OAS, through its special representative to observe diplomatic negotiations and to provide the necessary assistance, is what we look at in 2024. Let me underscore 2 key moments for our mission. First, the 6th edition of the joint session of both parties held in August in Guatemala, where we participated in bilateral constructive talks that reaffirms the commitment of both parties to improve the relationship, promote development, and promote cooperation through the International Court of Justice so that the conflict can be ironed out. Secondly, let me underscore a new cooperation financing agreement with the European Union for 3 years. Plus, this will allow us to continue our activities to comply with our mandate and to look at new possibilities as we move towards the resolution and abiding by the court's resolution. The European Union and its members continue to be crucial allies in this process. To all of them, we are deeply grateful. Our report shows that I would like to thank you very much for your support and the trust that you have deposited in me, Secretary General, to this peace mission. As such, I should like to thank you for the invaluable cooperation of the Secretary for strengthening democracy, Dr. Francisco Guerrero, and thanks to the Department of Democratic Sustainability, Mrs. Mellingkamp. Special recognition to the team of our mission on the ground, the commitment and dedication of which would or helped us get these achievements and report here at the Permanent Council. Once again, I would like to especially support the political support of the ministries of Belize and Guatemala, without which we would not have achieved the results that we are sharing today. My gratitude to the ministries of both countries, and particularly to the vice ministers, Ambassador Mayamay and Ambassador Manica Bolaños, their support of which was key in this process. And then finally, on behalf of the Organization of American States and on my own behalf, I should like to express my deep-seated thanks to the donors, especially the European Union, as well as to the governments of Italy and Spain, in the persons of their diplomatic representatives who are present here and whose financial and political commitment have allowed us to continue our peace mission. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Thank you very much. We truly appreciate the distinguished special representative of the Secretary General for the Affairs of Belize and Guatemala for this very valuable report, as well as the entire team from the OAS office in the Belize-Guatemala adjacency. We truly appreciate all of the results and the reports and the achievements in 2024.
And now I'm pleased to give the floor to His Excellency Carlos Ramirez Martinez El Saborado from Guatemala. Your Excellency, the Permanent Council gives you a very warm welcome, and we give you use of the floor. Good morning, Your Excellency Ambassador Hector Arce, Permanent Representative of Bolivia and Chair of the Permanent Council of the OAS. Your Excellency Luis Almagro, Secretary General of the OAS. Ambassador Amaya Midas, Foreign Minister of Belize, Special Representative of the General Secretariat, for the dispute between Guatemala and Belize. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the President of Guatemala, Bernardo Arevalo, I'd like to give warm greetings and express our gratitude for the report on progress from the OAS mission in the adjacency zone in 2024. This has been presented by Ambassador Agustin Espinosa, and we've taken due note. Without a doubt, the OAS office in the adjacency zone has played and continues to play a fundamental role in keeping peace and ensuring respect for human rights of the resident populations in the adjacency zone. Each day, the office works to strengthen trust-building measures between Guatemala and Belize. We recognize Ambassador Espinosa for his efforts and commitment during the last year. And also thank you to Sergio Lopez, director of the office. Also thank you to the Secretary General of the OAS and all OAS staff for their contributions in seeking a solution to this controversy. We recognize and value the work of the OAS office in the adjacency zone, which has been focused over the last year on the 4 fundamental issues described by Ambassador Espinosa. Addressing incidents in the zone, promoting social development with a special focus on empowering women, coordinating security issues with the armies of Guatemala and Belize, and strengthening political channels. We underscore the vision of the 2024 report on incidents, and this complies with the principles of transparency and impartiality and has contributed to reducing differences between 2 countries. This has not been a simple task, but thanks to the firm will of the OAS and those in the zone, we have been able to move forward. Chair, we express our thanks also to the group of Friends of Guatemala and Belize. Its support has been fundamental in carrying out the OAS's tasks in the zone. Thanks to this support, we have been able to move step by step toward a definitive resolution between Guatemala and Belize at the ICJ. Bilateral cooperation between our countries has reached one of its best moments thanks to positive support from the group of friends. And we urge all states to continue to cooperating with these entities in the adjacency zone. As already mentioned, the work of the OAS office has not been easy, but its presence has been vital to ensuring that our achievements are part of peaceful coexistence between Belize and Guatemala and those who live in the zone. Additionally, the intervention and efforts deployed over the last several years have ensured the security and safety of inhabitants in the zone. And the adjacency line, as already mentioned by the special representative, do not represent an international border. Therefore, we must ensure that we have peace and security for the populations that live on both sides of that line. With regard to promoting development and the peace agreement, we would like to express that we are pleased with the 4 training centers and peace promotion centers that have been created. As stated in the report, they serve as an area for capacity building and training and building a zone of friendship and understanding for the communities that use those centers. We recognize and support this through signing a new agreement with the OAS in the adjacency zone for a 3-year period. Each and every state that has provided us with economic support, including Italy and Spain, is thanked for their efforts to promote peace and channels of communication to facilitate the exchange between the countries. Ambassador Espinosa's commitment has been crucial here. We believe that we will achieve a resolution sooner rather than later, so that peace, security, and the rule of law are able to remain and we are able to develop. Thank you very much for your coordination in this area, and we are very pleased with the efforts since 2024 and efforts to ensure the strictest compliance with the principles of peace and human dignity. This has given us an open perspective as we proactively seek new ways to prevent any crimes from being committed in the adjacency zone, to work to promote the sovereignty of our people and prevent impunity. Politically and diplomatically, I'd like to underscore the 6th joint meeting between Belize and Guatemala in August 2024. The aim was to examine the status of implementation of the agreements on the adjacency zone. It's worth mentioning that also last May, President Arevalo received the Prime Minister of Belize with a high-level delegation. They reached new levels of coordination and exchange at this occasion, including renewing political and trade ties between our countries as part of this initiative for peace, security, sustainable development in the adjacency zone. Before I conclude, I would like to note that the latest report presented by Ambassador Espinosa was very valuable, and we recognize his effort and dedication. He gave his personal mark to the office of the OAS as we seek to promote the well-being of our people. Thank you very much, Ambassador, for your work and dedication. Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much, Your Excellency, the Foreign Minister of Guatemala, for your intervention in this Permanent Council. And now I'd like to give the floor to His Excellency Francis Fonseca, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Trade, Migration, and Culture in Belize. Your Excellency, welcome to the Permanent Council, and I give you the floor.
Si puede encender su micrófono.
Please turn on your microphone.
His Excellency Marcel Zaconeta, Chair of the Permanent Council, His Excellency Luis Almagro, Secretary General of the OAS, His Excellency Nestor Mendez, Assistant Secretary General of the OAS, His Excellency Carlos Ramiro Martinez, Minister of Foreign Affairs of Guatemala, His Excellency Agustin Espinosa, Special Representative of the Secretary General. Belize welcomes the report presented by the Special Representative of the Secretary General for the Belize-Guatemala process on the work of the OAS office in the adjacency zone during the AIR 2024. We extend our sincere gratitude to the Special Representative and the dedicated staff of the OAS mission in the adjacency zone for their unwavering commitment and service in carrying out this vital mandate. We also take this opportunity to express our appreciation to the Secretary General of the OAS and to the states which have provided financial support to the office, especially the government of Italy, the government of Spain, and the European Union, whose support remains instrumental in the continued success of this initiative. As we heard over the past year, the OAS office in the adjacency zone focused on 4 main areas: verification of incidents in the adjacency zone, implementation of social development projects with a special focus on women's empowerment, security coordination with the Belizean and Guatemalan militaries, and strengthening political and diplomatic dialogue. The excellent results achieved in these areas reflect the commitment of the OAS and both Belize and Guatemala to maintaining peace in the border area and goodwill among their citizens. The verification of incidents occurring in the adjacency zone is particularly critical to maintaining confidence between our two countries. We note that of the 57 requests for verification before the office in 2024, 65% remain pending. We urge the office to accelerate its efforts to complete these verifications in accordance with the terms of the framework agreement. We commend the office for its consistent impartiality in determining verifications. The population of the adjacency zone has been well served by the Tamai Training and Peace Promotion Centers, which offer free and certified technical training, especially to women. Belize commends this innovative initiative. The scope and scale of the Tamai centers has been remarkable and redounded to the benefit of women who live in the area. The network of Tamai centers is a model to be replicated in other areas as substantive elements of the CBMs. We also want to acknowledge the support of the OAS office in the resumption of the work of the Joint Commission, which met again in 2024 after a 3-year hiatus. The work of the Joint Commission is important to fully realizing the promise of the framework agreement and to consolidating the cooperation between Belize and Guatemala. At the same time, we face serious challenges in the adjacency zone. Persistent encroachment by Guatemalans for agricultural and logging purposes continue to destroy Belize's biodiversity. The illegal settlements of Guatemalans in Belizean territory are expanding, and the incidence of transnational organized crime in the southern section of the adjacency zone poses a security threat to both countries. These challenges require the OAS, Belize, and Guatemala to work closely together within the framework of the CBMs. Just as the CBMs have helped to ensure peace and reduce tensions along the land border, similar arrangements are needed for the Sarstoon and maritime spaces. It is therefore imperative that the OAS, Belize, and Guatemala work together to develop a mechanism for cooperation in the Sarstoon River and in the maritime spaces. Mr. Chair, Belize reaffirms its commitment to the judicial process currently before the International Court of Justice. We look forward to the next steps in the process and ultimately to the final and definitive resolution of this long-standing dispute. We also look forward to working constructively with our Guatemalan counterparts to implement the ICJ ruling. Truly, all the OAS member states should be proud of the accomplishments of the OAS office in the adjacency zone. It is a demonstration that the international community has a role to play in fostering peace and stability. And peace and stability is a long-term investment and commitment. This year will mark 20 years since the signing of the CBMs. Mr. Chair, Belize remains steadfast in its dedication to peaceful coexistence and good neighborly relations with Guatemala. We are committed to strengthening our collaboration in all areas of mutual interest, including trade, security, and sustainable development for the benefit of our peoples and the wider region. Once again, we thank the OAS and all those involved in this mission for their invaluable support. We trust that the international community will continue to stand with us in ensuring that peace and cooperation prevail in the adjacency zone and beyond. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Muchas gracias, señor.
Thank you very much, Minister, for your intervention and participation in this session. Now, dear colleagues, I'd like to give the floor to the delegations that would like to speak to this item on the order of business.
Si no hay solicitud.
If there are no requests for the floor, then I suggest that moving back, Costa Rica is recognized. Thank you very much, Chair. I will be brief due to the issue of time, but we would like to recognize the work of the office of the OAS office in the adjacency zone of Belize and Guatemala, and this is a clear example of preventive diplomacy and the role of cooperation, trust building, and dialogue. And the topic that brings us together today is something that concerns two states working to resolve their differences through peaceful legal means. And Costa Rica supports the peaceful conflict resolution in international law and efforts of the OAS in the region. Peace in the region is very valuable and must be preserved. Stability for our countries contributes to sustainable development in our societies and also strengthens integration and hemispheric cooperation. Therefore, we reiterate our support for the work of Ambassador Espinosa, who is with us today, the special representative of the OAS and the OAS office at the adjacency zone in Belize and Guatemala, and efforts in the spirit of dialogue and mutual respect. The commitment of the international community must be consistent in order to consolidate the achievements hitherto and continue building a future of peace and prosperity in the region. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Costa Rica.
La misión.
The permanent observer mission of Italy is recognized.
Gracias,
Thank you, Chair. I would, at the outset, like to salute the excellent government representatives from both Guatemala and Belize and congratulate Ambassador Agustin Espinosa, the special representative of the General Secretariat of the OAS, for his detailed oral report and for his professionalism, as well as his tireless work on the ground. Both Guatemala and Belize have granted the OAS a leading role in resolving this territorial dispute, which was also sent to the ICJ. The measures to strengthen mutual trust in the adjacency zone between both countries are aimed at empowering local communities, particularly women, in order to fight against exclusion and promote the development of the affected territories. At the same time, these initiatives aim to promote cooperation between the respective military forces and the populations of both countries, deactivating any potential hotspots, and the development agency for both countries is also involved. Since many years now, Italy has continued to support these important efforts in financing the centers, at the Amaya centers, which is a Mayan word which means tree that grows straight, as well as related activities. These spaces are used for professional training courses and other activities and allow literacy training for the local population. At the same time, they build a reference point in the areas of healthcare, access to justice, and security. Some of the achievements, as we already heard from Ambassador Espinosa, include with financial contributions from Italy, the creation of a bakery to work to promote food security. At the end of the day, this is a series of very specific, concrete projects to promote a territory of development and peace in collaboration with Belize and Guatemala and the OAS. We are working to build a present and future of greater trust, which Italy fully supports. Thank you very much for your attention.
Muchas gracias.
Thank you to the Permanent Observer Mission of Italy, Spain. Thank you, Chair, and greetings to the Belizean and Guatemalan government representatives who are with us today. And on behalf of Spain, I would like to thank you for the information shared through the Special Representative of the General Secretariat of the OAS for Affairs of Belize and Guatemala, Ambassador Agustin Espinosa. My country particularly values the work of the General Secretariat of the OAS and the Special Representative of the Office of the OAS in the adjacency zone, as well as that of the OAS as a whole, with the aim of sharing positions to move closer toward understanding, which over many years have allowed us to have fruitful joint work between the governments of both countries to promote peace and coexistence. Therefore, it's fair to recognize that the OAS office in the adjacency zone, led by Ambassador Espinosa, has played and continues to play an extremely important role in promoting coordination and dialogue between institutions and communities in Guatemala and Belize, through strengthening trust and driving productive projects, as we heard in today's session already. As you all know, Spain has been supporting this project from its very beginning, both politically and diplomatically, as well as materially. We have made contributions economically to the OAS Peace Fund. This is part of our long history of supporting the OAS office in the adjacency zone between Belize and Guatemala. And this is something that came to fruition through the Agency for Development in Spain, ACID, as well as a commitment which has been renewed through our voluntary contribution from the Secretariat of State for Iberoamerica and the Caribbean and Spain and the world. It allows us to continue working hand in hand with the OAS in 2025, as we heard during the initial report, with the support from the radio project in the zone. We note that resolving territorial disputes between countries of the Americas is a step that is indispensable to ensuring peaceful coexistence between people, as well as addressing the major challenge at hand for this hemisphere, which is ensuring economic progress and equity. Therefore, I would also like to bring to this session the importance of working to ensure women's participation as we work with the OAS, and by leading and recognizing the active role played by women in various communities and societies, as well as in the peaceful conflict resolution efforts. The achievements made have been real and they have been lasting. And in the office, we see the growing importance and visibility of this aspect of these efforts. And we know, in summary, that peace and security are necessary for development with regard to the environment and equal opportunities and rights between men and women, and to ensure that that is meaningful. It's important that in 2025 we continue to be committed to the implementation of measures that seek to promote confidence and trust in the adjacency zone between Belize and Guatemala, hoping to see the result from the ICJ. Thank you very much.
Muchas gracias, España. Ahora.
Thank you very much, Spain. And if we don't have any more requests from the floor, I suggest that the Permanent Council take note of the presentations made by the Special Representative of the General Secretariat for the issues of Belize and Guatemala on the activities and achievements of the OAS office in the adjacency zone in 2024. We also reiterate our thanks to Ambassador Francisco Fonseca from Guatemala and Carlos Ramirez Martinez Alvarado, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Guatemala for their very valuable participation on this item in the order of business. Also, thank you to Ambassador Espinosa and the entire team from the OAS office in the adjacency zone for their outstanding work in this very important relevant of the Organization of American States. Also, thank you to the permanent observer missions of Spain and Italy, which have intervened in this session. And if we don't have any objections, it is agreed. Dear colleagues, we are going to take a break until 3 o'clock. We have several pending issues on the order of business, and given that we are going to take a break, we have a reception in the Hall of the Americas organized by Canada and France, and so we would like to extend the invitation to all of you, and this is an excellent opportunity for us all to celebrate the French-speaking world, and we will be discussing that very topic when we come back from lunch. We will see you at 1500. Thank you.